We can't thank you enough. First of all, for coming, and second of all, for answering all the questions.
Facebook Messenger, man, what a nightmare.
It is a nightmare, but we are forever in your debt, and we really do appreciate the fact that you're here.
You need to
What's this?
pull that.
Okay.
Just found this in Roanoke, and I was like, oh, well, this is perfect.
Today is going to be awesome.
That's my promise.
Thanks, Judy.
So, hope to live up to that. And then, secondly, you know, you have these things, and this is good because there's basically enough chairs for the number of people. But everybody always, you know, tries to fill in from the back, and then the front row tends to be empty. So I got a gift for the first person who voluntarily sat in the front row. See, I am a front row person. And it's funny, one of the people that is one of my mentors is Jack Canfield. And so Jack Canfield is the guy who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and you know, then he made dog food, he did a bunch of different things, and he sold the Chicken Soup for the Soul name for $25 million, and the guy like started out with 2 cents in his pocket, and he was broke, and his first book got turned down by 160 some publishers. Nobody wanted to publish Chicken Soup for the Soul. And he just kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going. And so one of the things he says, you know, as a mentor is, how bad do you want something? And so, you know, he'll do things like he'll say, well, you know, who will come up front and cluck like a chicken? And we all sit there and go, no way. You know, and he goes, $5, who wants to come cluck like a chicken? And nobody gets up. He goes, all right, y'all blew it. And see, now we've heard him enough times that we know. If you ever go to a Jack Canfield, if he says, who wants to come up and cluck like a chicken? Run, be the first person there because you get $100. It's worth being the person in the front row. So it also shows that you're pretty dedicated. I mean, she's got her pad in her pen, she's like ready to roll. So for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Judy Morgan, and I am from New Jersey, born and raised there, and I keep leaving and going back. I'm kind of like the bad penny that just keeps landing back in New Jersey. They can't get rid of me. And so poor Hugh transplanted from, and that's Hugh Grant, my husband, not the other Hugh Grant. This Hugh Grant. Started in Amarillo, Texas, and so I've made a lot of trips to Texas in the last 10 years. And he was living in Delaware, and that's where we met, so I transplanted him to New Jersey as well. So being from New Jersey, we don't have a vet college out there, so we're at the mercy of everybody else. Texas A&M would not take my application back in the late 70s because they didn't take people from New Jersey. That is a little aggravating, and I still hold it against them, but even though my husband is an Aggie, but I hold it against them. So, but I ended up at the University of Illinois, which is still Midwest, very traditional, good old boys school, and you know, not very many women doing it back then, so we were the minority. And I wanted to be an equine vet, so my interview, they asked me all about pigs. I was lucky I happened to be in a pig class, so I was able to answer their questions and I got in. But everything that I learned was 100% traditional. You know, 100% what you guys face when you walk in the vet office every day, which is, okay, we're gonna get your little reminder, you're gonna come in every year for your vaccinations, and yes, your dog does need those every year, or so they say. We're gonna talk about those. And here's the drugs and the chemicals, and you know, there's no other way to treat anything, and oh yeah, here's your prescription diet, because we have racks and racks of it, and we make money on it, and it's great stuff made with garbage. So, and that's what I learned. So nutrition class in veterinary school 33 years ago, well, I had it in sophomore year, so even longer. 33 years ago, it hasn't changed. So your dog has kidney diet? Well, it has changed. It used to be you got Hill's KD because that was the only kidney diet. Now you can get NF from Purina, and then Royal Canin has, I don't even know what they call it, but Blue Buffalo has now come up with their prescription diet line. Every food company wants to get into this because it's big bucks. The interesting thing is that you need a prescription to get the prescription diets, but there's nothing in there that's a medication that you should need a prescription for, and oh, by the way, none of them are proven to work. So to get a drug approved by the FDA, it takes at least 7 years of trials to get a drug approved. To get a prescription diet approved, nothing. Nothing. FDA doesn't even oversee it other than to make sure that the label looks good. That's what FDA regulates. So from here, Hugh and I are going to Amarillo to see the family, and then we are going to Seattle because the AFCO meeting is at the end of next week, and that's the American Association of Feed Control Officials. Those are the guys who make the definitions for what can be put into pet food. So there will be 350 or so feed regulation officials there, and there might be 8 to 10 of us on the consumer side representing your pets. And the first time I went to AFCO with Susan Thixton, who has the website truthaboutpetfood.com. If you haven't been on there, you should get on her news mailing list. Truthaboutpetfood.com. She once a year puts out the list, and the list is the list of the only foods that she would ever consider feeding to her own pets. The list is very short. I have my own list. My list is shorter than Susan's because Susan investigates a lot more food companies. I don't have as much time to investigate food companies. That's what she does full time now. But I have a short list of what I am willing to feed my own pets. So, and Susan takes a donation. So if you only have $10 to give to get that list, she'll give it to you for $10. If you can give her $50, great. If you can give her $100, I get the list free and I still send her money because I appreciate what she does to do that for us. And she actually interviews the companies, she calls them. She has a list of questions and she has a list of criteria that they must meet in order to get on that list. It's pretty specific. The food company that I work with made the list the first year I was with them, and man, there was much rejoicing because you need to be on the list. So, so the 8 or 10 of us that will be at AFCO representing your pets, it is an uphill battle. Our phones get tapped, our rooms get wired. Big pet food is as bad or worse as big pharma. And they don't like raw pet food companies. They don't like anything that goes against what they are trying to put into pet food. So AFCO doesn't regulate anything. All they do is make definitions. And so if you, let's say you own a waste oil company. So your company runs around to all of the restaurants and picks up all their waste oils that they've cooked things in. And so if you go behind any restaurant, you'll find a big oil barrel with all the waste oil. That gets picked up by our company. And then they take it back to the plant and then they process it however they process it, and they want to get it put into pet food. And so they need to come up with a definition that you, the rest of us, won't be able to figure out what that really is, and they can put it in pet food. And they sell it to the pet food company. It's a waste product. So all the food that goes bad in the grocery store, all the yogurts and the bakery products and the dairy products, everything that goes out of date, all goes in the dumpster out back. Sits out in that dumpster in the hot sun. Then there's a company that comes along and takes all of that, and then they take it to their plant where they melt it all down, including all the plastics, and then they add it into cattle feed and pig feed. Guess what? All those plastics that are melted down have phthalates in it. That comes out in the milk, it comes out in the meat, and that's what we're eating every day. Our food industry is pretty darn scary.
Rosie movies. Here's some food.
I love Rosie. It's just, I forget that she's over there. I'm like, what is that noise?
I know.
So the food industry is scary. So anything that you can do to buy local, eat organic, go get a real tomato because it looks like a real tomato. When you're feeding things to your pets, make it, if it looks like real food, that's a good thing. But the interesting thing, when you go to the grocery store and you see things like sausages and vegan strips and some of those really, really bad treats. So vegan strips, and they've got the commercial of the dog with the big nose and it says bacon, 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 bacon. There's no bacon, bacon, bacon even in that treat. It's made with wheat, corn, and soy and high fructose corn syrup, so it's sugar and dyes and grains, and they mold it to make it look like it's real meat, but it's not. Anybody remember back in the 60s, Gaines burgers? Anybody seen Gaines burgers? We fed those. We would buy those. They're in the little plastic pack, and it kind of looked like, plastic food, because it really was plastic food. And And that was like the big treat, to be able to give our dogs Gaines burgers. It's like, oh, they cost more, that's their little sprinkle it over their really horrible kibble. And they loved it, because it was all sugar. And it's really toxic and carcinogenic. So there's a lot of carcinogens that go into pet food. So here's an example of one of those ingredients that none of us would ever be able to figure out. So, poultry protein isolate. Anybody got an idea what that might be?
Poison.
I'll take Debbie.
Feathers?
Feathers. Brown feathers. So this is made by Royal Canin, and it's one of their most expensive diets. It's a hydrolyzed protein diet for allergies and inflammatory bowel disease. It used to be made in France, might still be, I'm not sure. And it costs about $90 for a little bag about this big. And it used to say hydrolyzed chicken feathers on the label, except that people like me are on the internet going, what? Are you crazy? Like, first of all, that's not a good diet for dogs. Second of all, you want me to pay $90 for chicken feathers? That's a waste product. So I tell people that, and they go to their vet and go, I'm not doing that. What, are you crazy? So they changed the name. They went to AFCO and said, we need a name change. We want it to be protein whatever isolate. Yeah. Oh, poultry protein isolate. And they got the chicken. So now you look at it and you go, look, it's got chicken in there. Yay! No, it doesn't. These are the games that they play to keep you in the dark, so you have no idea what you're feeding your pets. So that's how I got involved with writing cookbooks for dogs. And I haven't written a cat cookbook yet. Here's the thing, anybody have cats in here? They're jerks. I don't like that. I know I ate it yesterday. I'm not eating it tomorrow. Oh, you bought 3 cases? I'm never eating it again. So here's what I'm going to say about cats. I know this is a dog seminar. What I'm going to say about cats is never feed them dry food. Dry food is absolutely not made for cats. It is, we call it kitty crack. It is kitty crack. They're addicted to it. It is horrible for them. You need to get them off. You can't starve them to death to get them off, but get them off. Canned cat food is rife with carrageenan, which is, and this is a thing that is for dogs as well. Carrageenan is highly inflammatory. Animals with inflammatory bowel disease, carrageenan is killing them. So a lot of it's C-A-R-R-A-G-E-E-N-A-N, carrageenan.
Well, that's in human food.
Yes, it is. It is bad, bad, bad. So if you're designing an experiment and you say, look, I'm making a new drug that decreases inflammation. Oh, well, in order to study that drug and see if it works, I'm going to have to create an inflammatory process. So, okay, I've got a monkey. I want to cause inflammation in the monkey's hand. We inject it with carrageenan. It gets highly inflamed, and then we can test our drug and go, oh, look, it took the inflammation out. Carrageenan is highly inflammatory. So all these animals with inflammatory bowel disease, get the carrageenan out of their diet. So if you're feeding canned food, you need to be a label reader. And it's hidden way down there. It's in there. And what the pet food industry says is, well, it's a natural byproduct of seaweed. Well, there's 2 types of carrageenan. There's carrageenan 1 and carrageenan 2, and when it's cooked, it goes from the good one to the bad one. So it's not so good, and it causes a lot of problems. So, so for kitty cats, what we really want them to eat is a meat-based diet. They're obligate carnivores. They need to eat meat. Don't try to make your cat a vegan. Don't try to make your cat a vegetarian. If you want a vegan pet, buy a hamster, buy a guinea pig, buy a rabbit. They like to be vegetarians. Do not buy a cat. Do not adopt a cat. Dogs, we can make them vegans and vegetarians, but boy, I don't like it. I don't think it's good for them. And it's funny, Dr. Pitcairn, who's probably the world's best known homeopath. I don't do homeopathy. He is awesome. He's cured hundreds of thousands of animals. Great guy. He's decided that our world is going to hell in a handbasket, and we're killing it by raising meat as our main protein source, because it costs the environment a lot more to raise meat than it does to raise veggies and grains. So he's decided that now all dogs, he's in his 70s now, he's decided that all dogs should be vegetarians and that we can make diets for them. Yeah, we can. It's not the ideal for them. I do have a couple of patients that are vegetarians, and I can't say that they have the best health, so I don't recommend it. It can be done. For cats, they'll die. You'll kill them. vegetarians. I have one client who insists their cat be vegetarians, and I actually fired her as a client because her cat died of heart failure and overwhelming infection from the allergy that it had to the corn-based kitty litter that she insisted on using that caused these huge ulcers on the cat's back end. It got horribly infected and then caused heart failure because the cat wasn't getting meat. So I fired her as a client, and she just showed up again. It's been like years. She just showed up again a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh, she wanted chiropractic on her new cat that's also a vegan. I'm like, oh, the cat's gonna die. I can't keep you as a client. I can't watch her and it'll die. So that's my little bit on kitty cats, even though we're not talking about kitty cats. So they do fit in. These guys are great because they give me a ton of time, and literally I could sit here and talk for a month. So you don't tell me to shut up when you're done with me. But I like these to be interactive, and I like to answer any questions that you guys have. And there's 3 main areas that we want to cover in our 4 hours. So one is food, obviously. I love talking about food. Talk about food forever. And we'll talk about Chinese medicine theory, and I can give you my foods that I would consider feeding my pets, and we'll talk about how you can use food to heal anything. So that's one section. Another section on vaccines, what you should, what you shouldn't, why you should, why you shouldn't, and how often you should or shouldn't. And then the third section is on parasites and parasite prevention. So fleas, ticks, heartworms, the good, the bad, the ugly, as far as the drugs, the chemicals, options that we have for alternatives. So at this point is I throw it up to you guys, and you get to tell me where we're starting.
Food.
Yeah. Food? We're gonna start food? That's so funny. This is the first one that they've said food, which is a good thing that you said food because the last 2 that we've done, they opted for something else, and then we got so sidetracked with vaccines. Actually, both of them, they started with vaccines, and we got so sidetracked that we got like 20 minutes for food at the end. So, and food's a biggie. All right, so how many people here are feeding dry dog food? Quite a few. Anybody feeding canned? Good couple, that's not as common. Raw? Home cooked? Okay. Freeze dried? Which also qualifies raw. What have I missed? Combination of a couple? Yeah, we're all over the place with our guys. Okay, so let's talk about, we'll start with the energetics of food. So the reason I love food is because I would say 80% of what walks in my door, I can either get them off their medications, get their medications lowered, get their allergies cured, get their arthritis better by changing the diet. Because we look at food that is going to be specifically helpful for a specific problem. So first thing we need to know about food is that food has energy that it gives us. Besides just the calories, it's going to affect our body in different ways, and that's why we can use food to heal. So from Chinese medicine, we know there's basically 2 main things. There's the yin and the yang, and they fit together really nicely in that little black and white ball. And you notice on the little, I don't even have a demo, the little black and white ball, the white has a little black dot in it, and the black has a little white dot in it. And the 2 fit together as a puzzle piece. You cannot have one without the other. You cannot be all yin, you cannot be all yang. Everything in life is about balance, so we're balancing the yin and the yang. Yin is the female side. So we're gonna give you some descriptions for female. I guess this is how the Chinese see women. We're dark. I think we're kind of moody. We're dark, we're cold, we're cool, we have more moisture, we are lower to the earth, lower to the ground. So I guess all women live in a dark cave with drippy water. That's how you can remember the yin. Yang is the male counterpart. Yang has to do with heat and energy and sun. In Texas, you live in yang country. Those folks up in Maine, they were in yin country. Personally, I love yang. If I could live in 90 degrees and humid all the time, I'm a happy camper. I know you guys get sick of it, but we don't get enough of it, so I'm all over it. So when we look at our pets, we can say they're either a little more yin, or they're a little more yang, or they're perfectly balanced. We want them to be perfectly balanced. What happens if they're not balanced is we're going to burn out some system for them. So if we wanted a good example of yang, well, we had a good example of yang. We had the golden retriever. Did you guys have the golden? No, you had the golden retriever. So this poor dog pants all the time. You can't stop panting. That dog is hot. I don't care if we put that dog in a room 60 degrees with an air conditioner, the dog is hot, pants. And just, pretty miserably hot. So what we can do is we can find foods that help support the yin, and we can cool that dog down and calm down that panting and that internal heat. What will happen to that dog that is always hot, always panting, looking for the cold tile floor? These guys, they can't get enough. What will happen is the kidneys are the cooling system of the body, and you burn them out. So a dog that is always hot, they're going to burn out their kidneys. So we're going to see kidney failure very early in these guys, or we're going to see problems with the kidneys. So we need to support that so that we save some of that kidney for down the line. So the dog that I usually use, she just happened to bring me a good one today. The dog that I usually use for that, think of the young Jack Russell terrorist. Chase the ball, chase the ball, chase the ball, chase the ball. Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's this. Let's go. I've got all this energy. I don't even know what to do with it. So I get people to come to me. Nemo, which is this guy? That's the yin dog. I'll get over it. Yep. Now he might have been going at high speed. I don't know. But this is what I think of with yin. You can see there's just more moisture in that body. They got a little bit more fat, which is just very wet. His tongue is kind of a lighter pink. It's round. He's just like, I'll get it done. That's yin. They move slow. These young kids can't see his tongue. It's kind of hidden. But the young kids, that's more young. They have a redder tongue. So when I do consultation forms, I have people, you tell me what color his tongue is. And I left hers, Bubblicious Bubblegum Pink. Well, you know what? That was a really good description. I saw the dog and I went, yeah, you're right. But usually what I get is pink. But what I'm looking for, is it pale pink? Is it wet? Is it big? Is it little? Does it have indentations in it? Is it red? Is it dry? That gives us a ton of information about what's going on inside the body. So when you go home, and you can do this for yourself as well, So when I first started learning about tongues, I've taken my first acupuncture course, and I'm sitting down, because classes in Florida, sitting down in Florida by the pool. I got an extra day before I have to go back, and I'm highlighting my book, and I'm like, oh, this tongue stuff is really cool. I looked at who's sitting next to me, my office manager. I'm like, what color is my tongue? And so I could out, she goes, oh man, your tongue is bright yellow. I'm like, what? Crap, I'm sick. If your tongue turns bright yellow, you are sick, because yellow is a sign of fever and heat. So if your pet has a yellow tongue, or if you have a yellow coating on your tongue, so you do this every morning. Like I wake up sometimes and I'm like, I don't know if I feel so good. I stick out my tongue and I go, oh crap, it's yellow. I'm sick. Because within 24 hours, you're gonna have the flu, you're gonna be down, you're gonna be out, you've got a problem. So you either do something about it right then and there and go, crap, I'm gonna go drink my tea, and I'm gonna go fix this right now. So, I say to my office manager, what color is my tongue? It's bright yellow, and I read that and I go, this is not a good thing. I'm pretty sure this is not a good thing. So the next day we went to get on the plane. I was flat out on the floor in the airport, and they didn't want to let me on the plane because I had the flu and I wanted to die. But I also wanted to get on that plane and get home, so I had to stand up and pretend I was okay. So that was my first intro into tongues, and I went, well, that was pretty potent information. Really good. So yin dogs, on the other hand, so the yang dogs, their tongue might be dry because they don't have enough moisture. Okay, so yang, remember, is sun and dry and heat. Whereas yin dogs, or cats, or people, tend to have a lot more moisture on the tongue. Sometimes we'll see little bubbles and foam and phlegm on the tongue. The tongue will be swollen, lighter pink. And so those are dogs who have too much yin, and we might have to warm them up a little bit. So then we can take foods that come from the yang category and say, I'm going to warm up this dog. So dogs that have too much yin tend to be very sluggish. They tend to be these bulldogs, the fatter dogs, the ones that just don't move, mastiffs. I'm not moving real fast. I'm good. So we can perk them up. We can give them more energy. We can give them foods that are going to energize them. So, my books have lists of all these, but I'll give you some quick lists. So when we're looking at meat proteins, because that's going to form the basis of our dog's diet, unless you're making a vegetarian, which I'm not going to recommend if you're making a meat-based diet. If you have a dog who's too hot, we need to cool them down. Cooling proteins: rabbit, cold water fish. Here's an interesting thing: salmon, big cold water fish, right? It is unless you farm raise it, and it's hot. Because it's fed corn and it's confinement raised, it's very crowded, it changes the energetics of the food. So how it's raised is as important as what it is.
But we don't have a way to tell by the ingredients.
On the ingredients on the pet food, you're never going to be able to tell. However, I say that tongue in cheek a little bit because Origin, there's actually says wild caught cold water fish on there,
yes,
I believe.
Yes, that's right.
I think that one does, but most of them, it'll say salmon. And I'm going to tell you that for the most part, it's probably farm raised, and it's basically the dregs that were cut off. You know, they're giving you all the parts that weren't suitable for human consumption. That's what goes in pet food. 99% of the time, what's in pet food is what's not fit for human consumption. So cold water fish. So I love sardines. The small fish, those guys are energetically usually pretty cold. Crab, we don't use crab in dog food very often, but if I've got a really, really hot small dog, sometimes I'll use crab, particularly with allergies. So rabbit, pork, duck. Now, some of this is a little bit intuitive and some of it makes no sense at all, but if we think of a duck, it swims in cold water. You know, they're kind of like the cold water. We see them a lot up north.
What about alligator?
Alligator's cold. So alligator's a reptile. Is it a reptile or amphibian? Reptile? I don't know. I can never tell those apart. Okay. You see how much I learned in science. I don't do things with scales. So they're actually a cold-blooded animal. So very slow moving. If they're in cold water, when you warm them up, they move a lot faster. So as an interesting aside, when I was in vet school, we had a pet caiman alligator. It was found in the sewers in Chicago, and so my boyfriend's roommate was from Chicago, and he thought it would be cool to have this pet caiman. So it actually lived in a big glass tank as the coffee table. And so the caiman was like this long when we got him. And I used to do a lot of school talks, and I would take this caiman with me to school talks, and he was great because as long as he was cold, we couldn't move. So we'd get him, you know, in the winter in Illinois, we'd take him outside, put him in the car, he'd get nice and cold, and then you could handle him, you could do whatever you want. And we'd take him into the schools, and he was great until his body temperature started to come up, and then he could move real fast, and then it was like, oh, back outside. So yeah, so they're cold. Alligator's cold. And I don't know if you can get alligator here, but if you're in Florida, Louisiana, it can be easy to get, and is a really good hypoallergenic protein source. Okay, so let's see, for hot foods, chicken, venison, lamb, and goat. Those are hot. So one of the things that I see, the Jack Russell terrorist puppy, the owner comes in and says, man, I can't house train this thing. He doesn't listen to me. He won't sit. He won't stay. That dog doesn't know anything. He is trashing my house. I can't train him. Oh, that's great. What are you feeding him? Oh, that lamb and rice puppy food from the grocery store. Okay. How about we take him off lamb and rice because that's hot and that gives energy. Let's put him, if I could get alligator, I'd get alligator. Let's put him on the duck. And then they come back a couple weeks later and go, hey, I might like this dog. Why don't I keep him? He might be salvageable because he can listen now. So a lot of times, you know, this is a behavior thing with kids too. You got kids that are ADD, get them off the dyes and the sugars, and all of a sudden they can listen to you. Big problem, big problem. So we see the same thing in pet food. You'd be amazed how much sugar. Rodney D.V.M did a video, because he likes to do really cool technical stuff. But he did a video, if anybody ever watched The Biggest Loser, and they used to do the thing where they'd say, well, this is how many sodas you drink in a year, and this is the amount of sugar, and they make this big mountain of sugar. Same mountain as in pet food. Why do we have sugar in pet food? But it is. You know why? It's a preservative. Salt and sugar are preservatives, and that's why. So Purina is very proud of the fact, Susan Sixon tells the story, when you buy dry pet food, it usually has a 1-year shelf life, sometimes 2 on the that's the expiration date on the bag. Purina is very proudly will tell you that it'll last 25 years. They only put the 2 years or 1 or whatever it is because that's what FDA makes them do. But they'll proudly tell you it's good for 25 years. And it's funny, when I first started doing these talks, probably 4 or 5 years ago, Hugh and I went to the grocery store and we bought all the worst crap. Like we bought some kibbles and bits and some moist and meaty and the sausages and all that stuff. And it's still sitting in its packages upstairs in my office where the air conditioning doesn't work, so it's like always 90 degrees up there. And you can smell the petroleum smell in the room where that stuff has been sitting. It is awful. But I guarantee if I opened up those sausages or whatever, they'd still be soft and chewy and moist because of the chemicals that are in there. And they are very proud of the fact that it will last them. So we can either calm and cool our kids, or we can make our kids energetic. So we just lost Freckles, one of our 16-year-old Cocker Spaniels, a couple weeks ago. But she was what I called an old cold dog. So Freckles wore sweaters even when it was 90 degrees because she was always cold and she had very low energy and she leaked urine because her energy to hold her urine in her body was so weak. So we put her on warming herbs and warming foods and sweaters, and we could kind of keep her moving slowly. But it worked. Now the funny thing is, when we first got her, we got her at 14 and she came with a lot of allergies. And so my go-to for allergies is rabbit, because allergies are an inflammatory disease. So that's a hot disease. And rabbit happens to be nicely hypoallergenic. It is very hard to have a reaction to rabbit. It's just the nature of that protein. So I very commonly will go with rabbit as my hypoallergenic diet. So I started, the dog came leaking urine. She was just coated. And I said, well, I'm going to put her on rabbit because I need to get rid of the allergies and the inflammation. Well, it worked great for her skin, but the dog couldn't hold a drop of urine in her body. I mean, she just walked around leaving trails and puddles and sleeping in puddles. And, then I said, well, this dog is way too cold. I got to warm her up. So I changed her to chicken once we got her skin cleared up. She did fine on the chicken. And then we had a warming herb. And oh, look, the urine stays in the dog pretty well. So we can change just about anything. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what's hot and what's cold, and we can warm them up or we can cool them down. Now, how do you know if your dog is hot or cold? Cats, it's a little trickier. But cats are jerks. They make everything hard. And guess what? You can come in and I will design a diet for your dog, and your dog will go, oh, you're the best mom in the world. You just, oh man, look what's in my bowl. I used to get dry blood. Now look, I love you. Cats go, you made this big crock pot full of food, you're all proud of yourself, and your cat goes, yeah, I don't think so. No, I always tell people, if you're making it for your cat, you better make sure you want to eat it, because the cat. Alright, so, alright, where was I going there? I get lost a lot, by the way. Alright, so we can energetically warm our dogs, or we can cool our dogs. That's where I was. How do we tell whether our dogs are hot or cold? So, if they've got boundless energy, they are all over the place, and so most youngsters are this way. They've got yang, they're hot. So we're going to balance them by feeding something that's going to cool them off a little bit. If they have a bright red tongue. Now you don't want to look at their tongue after they just finished running the agility run. It's probably going to be red. They're a little hot. You want to catch them when they're just hanging around the house. So I did this little thing a couple years ago, and I said, I want everybody to send me pictures of their dog's tongues. Well, it's pretty difficult to get your dog to just So everybody sent me pictures of their dog's tongues, but they were all panting dogs who had just run an agility course. I'm like, okay, look, they're all red. I couldn't get what I wanted. What I really wanted was to have a palette that I could, put in a book and say, look, this tongue means this tongue means this. It's much easier to do with people tongues, because people just stick out their tongue. So if your dog has a red tongue, and there is, if you are concerned that your dog might have cancer, there is a tongue red that I call toxic red. And it is a brick red maroon. And if I see that on a dog, we don't know that dog has cancer, but I'm going to go look for it. Toxic red. It is a dark maroon. It is ugly. You don't want to see it. So we see it a lot in lymphoma dogs, hemangiosarcoma dogs that are brewing that. And a lot of times the only symptom that you're seeing, so this is another sign of heat in the dog, excess thirst and urination. They're trying to put out the fire all the time. So if you have a dog who's drinking a lot, they've got some sort of inflammation and heat in the body. So right now, our 16-year-old Scout, drinking like a fiend. Lab work perfectly normal, x-rays perfectly normal. I can't find his problem, but there's something going on because he's drinking buckets. And peeing buckets, because what goes in has to come out. I haven't found the problem yet. Makes me a little nuts, because I know something's going on, but we'll worry. So that's a heat problem, so what we want to do is cool those guys off. So Scout eats rabbit. Rabbit's cooling. Also has a bunch of allergies. Okay, so if your dog sleeps on the cold tile floor, and if you'd like your dog to sleep in bed, they start out in bed, and after a minute and a half, they're like, yeah, see ya. And they're off on the bathroom floor, that's a dog that's too hot. They're the guys, you take them outside in the sun, and they're like, how fast can we get back in the house? You're like, I don't even want to do that. So those are your hot dogs. Their coat might be a little brittle or dry. Their nose might be dry. Their foot pads might be dry. So a healthy dog, I want black patent leather shoes and a black patent leather nose. That's what we're looking for. Unless they happen to have if they're a pink-nosed dog or a pink-footed dog, they might have pink patent leather shoes. Yes.
So how do you reconcile the two if there's some discrepancies here? Like, my Dawson always searches for the towel, he won't snuggle because it's too hot, but he don't have balance in her.
So what we're gonna,
I
so
love
what we're
my
gonna,
boy, but he'd be fine sleeping all day.
okay, but he still might be hot. Does he pant?
He pants, but it's mostly that he's always searching for the tile. Sorry, mommy, I love you, I'll sit with you
He's
for
hot.
5 seconds, and then I have to go find the
He's
floor.
hot.
Yeah.
He's hot. So we can give him chi tonics, which are gonna be energy tonics, so we'll get to those, because he doesn't have enough energy. But we're gonna use cooling chi tonics. Okay?
Okay.
So, all right, so yes,
I have the opposite problem.
dog that's,
I have Italian greyhounds. They are always cold,
right.
but they have boundless energy.
Right. So the energy is fine, but the reason they don't have, so the sighthounds are an interesting group because they don't have any fat, they don't have any insulation. So they're cold, they shake, they shiver, they would like to wear sweaters all the time too. So for them, I probably would warm them up, but I'd be careful not to take them too hot. So there's some foods that are fairly neutral. So turkey is gonna be in the kind of neutral range. Beef is another one of those, it depends how it's raised. If it is confinement raised, which Hugh has promised me he's gonna take me to a confinement operation so I can get pictures in Amarillo. Because we went to the stockyards in Fort Worth, they didn't have anything. I saw a cow. I saw a longhorn with a saddle on him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a tourist trap. I wanted to see like real cows, I want to see a feedlot. Yes.
So my dogs just had their pictures taken and they were very relaxed, and their tongues are out.
Oh, good, that's what we tons.
And they had just been asleep on the floor in the lobby, and so they got up there to get their picture taken. One's an Augie and one's a Corgi. Now the Corgi is always hot.
I'm gonna say that you've got more heat here than here, but they're both going more toward heat.
He's definitely, he wants the tile and he wants to sleep in bed under the covers.
This one does?
Yes.
How old's this one?
He's 2. Hank is 9.
He's burning up, so,
You see what I'm saying? But
So-
like, I can't
so-
tell from the tongue.
yeah, no, so you might wanna look at them at home, when, because we also have the problems with camera filters and that sort of
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
So the guy on the right is definitely hotter than the guy on the left.
Right.
So guess what, you get to feed 2 different meals. We have 8 dogs at our house right now, and there's usually about 5 or 6 different meals with 8 dogs. At Monkey's house, where there's 25 dogs, there's 25 different meals. Because every meal is tailored to whatever the dog's problem is. Okay, so beef, if it's confinement raised, it's hot. If it's pasture raised and pasture finished, so this is the problem, we get the pasture raised and grain finished, which basically then made it a confinement operation. But the pasture raised and finished beef is neutral, so we can use that for our hot dogs with no problem. So again, on the pet food, we don't almost guarantee, well, you know what, an awful lot of them say grass-fed, pasture raised, in the dry kibble, pretty much it's gonna be confinement raised, or at least grain finished, because they're using what they're getting as the leftovers. Now, here's the other problem with the pet food industry, they lie. Besides trying to mislead you and tell sneaky little things, they also just outright lie. So, anybody's familiar with Avengers, anybody hear about the Avengers fiasco a few months ago? them? Killed dogs with pentobarbital on the food? So when you go to their website, human grade meats, USDA inspected meats, still on their website. They got caught with their pants down. FDA went after them. Susan Thixton caught them, by the way. She is our watchdog. And she caught them because the pet owner who owned the pugs, the one who died and they all got sick after eating the can of hunk of beef or whatever it was, the woman happened to be a lawyer. So she was smart enough to say, I think that food that I just fed my dogs just made them sick and killed that one. I'm saving that food, I'm getting an autopsy, I'm having the stomach contents tested, I'm having the cans tested. Oh, look at that, we got pentobarbital and everything. So we got lucky. We got lucky. There's a lot of, Evangers makes pet food for a lot of other companies. They all use the same plant. It's Evanger's plant. So they're all using the same base ingredients. And this is why in 2007, with the huge recall that killed tens of thousands of pets because of the melamine, that plant was actually 15 minutes from our house.
Diamond?
It wasn't Diamond. It was in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Menu Pet Foods was the manufacturer, but they made food for 20 different companies. Hills, Eukanuba, Iams. So they basically have all these different conveyor belts, and so okay, we're gonna run a run of Hills. Okay, now we're gonna run Eukanuba. And so they just take the recipe that the company gives them, and then they're all using the same raw ingredients in all the different pet foods. It's just put together slightly differently, and all runs down the same conveyor belt. So when Evangers had that problem, I think Party Animal was made there, Cocolicious was made there. I think Cocolicious is part of Party Animal. But there were 5 or 6 companies who were suddenly in trouble. And some of them got tested and were found to have the same thing in there. But Evangers still hasn't fessed up. They're still saying, oh, it wasn't our fault. Oh, our suppliers did that to us. Well, you know what? You should know what your suppliers are doing. And oh, by the way, wasn't USDA inspected, wasn't human grade, never has been. They're actually sourcing their meat from a roadkill guy, the guy who runs around and picks up all the dead stuff. That's where most of the meat comes from. So when you see a lot of the meals that are in, so when you see chicken meal, turkey meal, beef meal, meat and bone meal, meat byproduct meal, whatever it is, a lot of that is the roadkill and the carcasses that are rendered at high heats. So this is why I don't like kibble. So for those of you who are eating kibble, there's a lot of reasons I don't like kibble. So one of the things is that anything that goes in kibble is cooked at high heat, a minimum of 4 to 5 times. Yes?
How about if it's baked?
So baked is a little better than rendered. But, so the pet foods, so there was a big thing in the newspaper in Pittsburgh last summer. There was this big truck full of dead cows, like whole dead cows, that broke down in front of a car dealership. And the stench was so bad that they, called the police and said, we can't be in business. Like all the businesses had to shut down because this truck is sitting in 100-degree heat with melting dead carcasses, melting all over the road. But they were on their way to the rendering plant to be made into pet food. So it sat out in the sun, they baked, they're putrid, they're rancid, they're full of cancer, because these are the dead cows that couldn't be used in the human food industry. So they're full of cancer and diseased tissue. So when you see chicken on a label, Susan Thixton has a great picture of this. It could be, now when you picture chicken, your picture, I see all of you right now, I see the little bubbles over your head. Look at that little roaster chicken in the grocery store, that's chicken. Or it could be this flat mangled, dark green, gangrenous, dead chicken. That still counts as chicken in dog food because the FDA says it's okay. Which is pretty funny because the definition actually says that's illegal to use that dead gangrenous stuff. And every time Susan Thixton says to them, well, when are you going to regulate this? When are you going to tell the pet food companies they can't use this? And they said, oh, we're not. She said, you're choosing to ignore what's on your laws. Yep. She has it on tape. They willingly ignore it. Wow. The pet food industry says to us, because the first meeting I went to, I got on their case, and the guy said to me, so you just want all this to rot in a landfill? I'm like, well, better than feed it to my dog, thank you very much. Because here's the thing, I'm the one, now you're the owners, I'm the one standing in my office putting dogs to sleep because like this little cocker. They've got horrible skin disease, horrible ear disease, and the owners are sick to death of spending thousands of dollars trying to cure their pet, and they can't. And they never will with what's coming out of those bags. And I'm pointing that way. There is Origin over there. And Origin, if you gotta feed a dry food, you know, it's there are levels, and it's, you know, at this level of dry food, but I don't feed dry food because there's no way to know exactly what those ingredients are. They hide what's in there. So at the last AFCO meeting that I went to, we were having a discussion about what is poultry meal. So if it specifically says chicken meal, it's chicken. If it specifically says duck, it's duck, whatever. But I think Susan asked the question about how the poultry meal was actually processed and the poultry byproduct meal. And so the FDA said, well, you know, that's the muscle and the bones and whatever of the chicken that is cooked down to make the poultry meal. And somebody in the poultry industry stood up and said, well, actually, no. And the FDA kind of went, what? And the guys, there were all these poultry people there, and they said, well, actually, so where do you think all the laying, they call them spent laying hens. These are the ones that, you know, they laid all their eggs, they're not gonna do that anymore, they're really tough, so they can go into soup, maybe. Or they, you know, we're just gonna use them for dog food, because what else are you gonna do with them? So the way that they get rid of all those, you know, if you've ever seen a poultry chicken house, there's, you know, like hundreds of thousands of chickens in these buildings. So the way that they destroy them all, so they can, you know, euthanize each, or kill each chicken one at a time, that's gonna be time consuming, that's gonna raise the price of the food. They foam them, so they basically spray a foam over them that kills them, I don't know whether it suffocates them, but whatever, but they spray a foam over them, I'm sorry, yes, I'm going to make your dinner really good. So, my breakfast with spaniels every morning, we talk about, you know, poop and anal glands and that kind of stuff too. So, but they foam them, and then they run them all through a grinder, so it's the whole chicken. Or, they don't bother with the foam, and they just run them through the grinder. So when you get that poultry meal, you think you're getting, you know, chicken muscle, it's kind of, you know, maybe we got the livers, they're pretty good for the dogs, maybe have some heart, that's good. Yeah, they don't separate all that out. You're getting feet, feathers, cones, poop, intestines. That's what gets ground up to make poultry meal. So then they have to cook it at high temperature because they have to kill all that bacteria, because FDA has a 0 bacteria tolerance. So you can't have it test positive for E. coli and salmonella. So it gets cooked 5 times, high heat. And then there are magnets all along the processing chain to pull out all the little metal leg bands and the ear tags on the cows. That's why when you buy kibble, a lot of times you'll find pieces of metal or string or plastic in it. If it's string and plastic, you know, like the plastic ear tags, well, that doesn't get pulled out by their magnets. The pet food industry is ugly. I took a big picture of the Purina plant when we drove by it the other day. I want to go in and take a tour, but they won't let you because they know it's horrible, and they know people like me will go, look at this. What's that? You can find some videos online, but most of them are people that clandestinely went in with a camera hidden to get the videos because they
We
don't
have
want
to go undercover and get a job.
Yeah.
Pretend to work there.
Yeah, somebody do that.
That's what we have to do.
Somebody go do that, because they don't want people to know. So there was a big lawsuit that Susan Fixer was involved in with Purina out in Missouri. So there were a couple of whistleblowers who worked there, and the people, the workers, 3 or 4 of them got serious cancers. Actually, one just died because the chemical vitamin mineral mix that they bring in and some of the stuff, the fungicides and things that they spray on the food, they were having the people apply this stuff without any protective equipment. And so the one guy, he decided to be a whistleblower, and he went to FDA, went to lawyers, and one of the funny things that came out of this was one of the FDA inspectors, this is out in Missouri, one of the FDA inspectors went and inspected, and in his inspection report, he reported that there was a very large hole in the roof of the pet food manufacturing facility right over one of the pet food vats. So, you know, birds flying over, weather, whatever is coming right in to this pet food that's being produced. And so Susan said to him, well, okay, this is right in the report, but there's a hole in the roof, but you didn't fault them for that. You didn't say they needed to fix it. You know, like, is it okay that it's just like raining in the roof? He goes, well, it wasn't raining that day. That was his answer. It wasn't raining that day. FDA basically says they don't have time to deal with this. So, they don't want to. Anyway, so this is why the processed pet food industry, you have to be really careful. When you're buying something, you need to know and trust. This is why Susan's list is good, because Susan questions these people. She nails them to the wall. And I follow Susan, and then I also, if I'm interested in feeding something, I call up the company and I ask questions. And then I get some of their food, and then I look at it and I feed it and ask more questions. So, and you guys should be label readers and ask questions too. Okay, so cold dogs. Cold dogs like that, yes, Debbie?
Does Susan have to watch her back?
Oh, Susan has a target. You wouldn't believe how big the target is. She has a throwaway cell phone that can't be tapped. No longer has an iPhone. She has throwaways, and she changes them. She's had people. She has at the last AFCO meeting, she started getting these texts. Watch your back. Wow. We know where you are. Susan has a huge target. And so it's interesting when we go to these meetings, when the independent said, this will be his first time going, we meet far off site and we hide. So if we want to have a discussion about what was said or what we want to work with, we can't be within earshot. One of the sisters from Answers Pet Food, a few years ago, one of the FDIA guys went by and said, you're all just a bunch of hippies trying to, cause a ruckus here. So the next year she shows up and she's dressed like a hippie. I mean, she had the headband and the long hair and the frilly shirt. She's like, all right, yeah, I'll be a hippie, no problem. But I mean, they think we're a bunch of crazy people.
What's her last name?
Which was Susan Thixton, Thixton. She's from Florida, and it's Truth About Pet Food. She's a great woman. And she started all this because her dog died. She had a Rottweiler that died of osteosarcoma. And her veterinarian said to her, yeah, it was probably from the pet food. And that made her crazy, so she called up Purina. She was feeding Purina dog chow or something. She called them up, and that was when they told her that, oh yeah, very proudly it lasts 25 years. Wow. And she was horrified, and she said, I'm never going to see a pet go through this again. And so she started on this crusade. And so she's called the Cape Crusader for pet food. Cool.
So don't feed them any dry healthy. Cook your own.
Well, I'll give you some names of some things I like, but dry kibble. So, all right, we'll talk about. So, I don't like dry kibble because of how it's made and how they hide things in the ingredients. So, they're not truthful, is the problem. And so, we have a hard time. Now, there is one dry food company out of Canada. It's going to be incredibly expensive, but it is really good. It's called Carna and the number 4, Carna 4. So, the woman that started that company used to own Sojo's, which is a freeze-dried company. She sold it, and she said, they wrecked it. And it's like watching somebody spank my baby, and I can't stand it. So I'm going to start a new company. And she knew there was a need for good kibble, so she made, it's baked. So she made Carna 4, and she's making it in Canada.
So would it be for either cold or hot dog?
Well, it depends on the protein. So I don't know if they have different flavors. So if we look at the origin, they've got their 6 fish. Well, that's made with 6 cold water fish. Well, I've got cold water fish, so that's a cooling formula. Although all dry kibble energetically is more warming than what other things we can feed. But if we had to pick between their kibbles, we look at 6 fish, that's cold formula. They have a chicken-based formula, that's hot. And then they have a red meat that has like 6 red meats. It's got elk and bison and whatever. It's got venison. So when I look at that one, it's probably skewed a little more toward warm, but it's cooler than the chicken would be. So, you can kind of play. So even if you say, well, look, I'm going to feed canned food or I'm going to feed dry food, I can't get away from that for whatever reason, you can still manipulate your energetics of it by looking at what the protein is in it.
So talking about the Origin product, I was in Petco and we were looking at that stuff, and the girl there said that Origin is very high in protein and that some dogs have a hard time processing that part, how the high protein
So
part of it.
this is a fallacy.
Is that
So
false?
I get emails all the time. What percentage of protein, carbohydrate, and fat should my dog eat? I don't care. I don't care what the protein is. My dogs eat raw meat diets. So all those people that are feeding barf, which is biologically appropriate raw food, or prey model raw, Guess what? They're feeding 100% protein. Well, no, they got fat in there. They're not feeding carbs. Their dogs don't have a requirement for that. So that's the next thing about dry food. Dry food, by its nature, is high in carbohydrates. You cannot make it stick in a kibble without carbohydrates. So in the past few years, we've seen this huge revolution toward grain-free food. And everybody says, oh, grain-free is better. You want to solve those allergies, you want to solve those ear infections, go buy grain-free kibble. You'll have no problems at all. Well, for some dogs, it does help. However, grain-free is not carbohydrate-free. All they did was take out the wheat, corn, soy, or whatever grain was in there, rice, and they replaced it with a different carbohydrate. Sweet potatoes, white potatoes, tapioca, lentils, chickpeas, peas. What did I miss? Different colors of lentils, red. If you read the origin bag, there's about 3 different colors of lentils because they separate them out. There's green lentils and there's orange lentils and red lentils or whatever, yellow. So all we did was take one carb and change it for another. So all those dogs with chronic yeasty problems, yeasty ears, yeasty feet, you know, my dog smells like corn chips. They're itchy. They've got yeast. Yeast grows on sugar. Carbohydrates are sugar. Carbohydrates break down to sugar. You have a yeasty dog, you have an allergy dog, get the carbs out of their diet. A dry kibble is going to be a minimum of 50% carbohydrates, probably more like 60 to 65. As a matter of fact, I had this statistic a little while ago, the highest meat kibble on the market is 33% meat, I believe. So they're very low in meat, but that's what our dogs need, and that's why, one of the reasons why kibble doesn't work for cats.
So are they lying when they're telling us it's 95, 96, 98%?
They shouldn't be telling you that in dry food. They might tell you that in raw food.
Okay, restrict.
Raw food can be.
Okay.
So raw food does not use carbohydrates. They don't use the grains and the, well, I take that back, the frozen raw foods. So some of the freeze dried. So like Honest Kitchen,
Stella's and Chewy?
calls the Stella and Chewy's, we'll get into them. It started out good. Happens to everybody. Dollar signs.
Yep.
So carbohydrates are bad for just a lot of reasons. They make fat dogs, they make diabetic dogs, they make yeasty dogs, they make allergic dogs. So I don't like carbs. So I want my dogs to be on a low carb diet. Technically, we should all be on a low carb diet too. It makes us much healthier. You want to avoid cancer and get the carbs out of your diet.
Do you know anything about the farmer's dog? I keep seeing the advertisement.
Oh yeah, the farmer's dog. So
Is that-
when I see these things, I have to go in and I have to use one of my dogs. So George keeps getting emails from the farmer's dog because I wanted to see what their food was. So the good thing about the farmer's dog is they're using real food. So you look at it, it's like, oh, real whole foods. That's good. And they do different formulations, and I think they say that they can make an individual formulation based on what your dog eats. Oh, by the way, Purina does that too. If you go to, I think it's their Beyond. So we played this game. So you go to their website, and it says, we'll formulate a diet specifically made for your dog, and we'll put his picture on the bag, and then we're just going to ship it to you every month. Like, you just get on this auto ship. I was like, well, isn't that interesting? Let me go look at what these ingredients are. So we took 4 dogs, totally different. We took a puppy and that had this problem, and an old dog with this problem, and another dog with this problem. And we sent in all those dogs, put them through their little computer system, and they all came out with the exact same diet. So yeah, personalized for my dog. Well, they put his picture on the back. And the 3 different diets that they had, I think there was a salmon, a lamb, and a chicken. Basically, it was the exact same ingredients in every one except for the main protein. They just changed out the salmon for the lamb for the chicken. So, yeah, personalized. Okay, so Stella and Chewy's. I'll talk about Stella and Chewy's. So Stella and Chewy's, she started out, if you read her backstory, I think she lived in New York City and her dogs were sick or whatever, so she decided to feed them like real food, fed them raw food, and real meat, and oh look, the dogs look so much better. Hey, you know what? And then other people started saying, hey, your dogs look better. What are you doing? Okay, I can make that food for you too. Hey, I can make this into a business. Okay, it was a good business in the beginning. Well, then she got big, and then I think they moved out to, I think they were in Wisconsin. And so she was pounding out this raw food, and it was frozen raw. And then she got into the freeze drying. Now, the freeze drying process definitely changes the protein a little bit. So if I have a choice of frozen raw, or, I mean, first choice would be fresh raw, make your own. Pain in the butt, like, you know, there's somebody here with Karen Becker's book, yeah, a lot of people follow that book for about 3 months and go, man, is that a pain in the rear? I'm not doing that, that's way too much work. It's a lot of work to make your own balanced raw food. And that's where these wonderful companies have come in and they're helping us out, and it's nice if they're doing it well. So Stella and Chewy started out doing it well, and I like them, and I actually have a freezer that they gave me that says Stella and Chewy's all over it, that doesn't have Stella and Chewy's in it anymore. So, well, it has a little bit. So her sourcing was good, and she was doing everything right, and then she got into freeze drying and discovered that the freeze dried market was huge, because thanks to Chewy.com, which we're all getting away from now, because they got bought by Mars, who's trying to take over the pet industry, by the way. They're buying vet clinics, they're buying labs, they're buying x-ray, they're buying everything. So she started freeze drying because you could ship that online very easily, whereas, you know, shipping frozen food to people, you know, you gotta do dry ice, and it's a pain and it's expensive. So she started doing the freeze drying, and then that was so popular that she had to build a new plant and had to get much bigger. So they did. They built this new plant, and they're big. And then in the last year and a half, she went, huh, you know, that kibble market is really big, really big. Now this is someone who has been an advocate for raw feeding for the past 10 years, and it has served her well, and she's made millions of dollars. And she went, huh, kibble? Yeah, a lot of people buying kibble. Can't talk them into that raw food. All right, I get a new angle. So her new angle is, I'm gonna make dry food. I'm gonna spray it with some raw, which, by the way, most of the kibble companies spray with animal digest anyway, which is really disgusting stuff. But it's basically fat, which goes rancid. But so she started doing that, and that was her way. So basically, she has taken a really, you know, a halfway decent product, which has gotten not so decent anyway, but she's taken a halfway decent product, and then she's mixing it with a really bad product, and then charging high dollar for it, and it's a horrible product. And I'll tell you why I'm getting away from Stella's. When we look at kibble products, so, you know, you read your ingredients, and we're all smart enough now, and the companies know that we're smart enough now that, oh, we're looking for meat as the first ingredient. They know we're looking for that, so okay, fine, we'll bump that one up a little bit. But they are in, you know, descending order. So yeah, we'll put chicken as the first ingredient. Well, chicken's high moisture, whereas chicken meal is actually more expensive because that's low moisture, and they have to actually put more chicken in when you buy a meal. So they put chicken as the first ingredient, and then they do yellow lentils, red lentils, green lentils, peas, pea protein, and so they do what's called splitting. So it's basically all the same ingredient, but that way they can have 10 times more peas than chicken in there. So, but what happens when food is made into kibble and it goes through that high heat process, there's no nutrition left by the time it gets to the end of that. So they have to add a synthetic vitamin mineral mix in order to get up to AFCO standards. So say you have to have this much vitamin A, B, C, whatever, you know, all the way down. So they add a synthetic vitamin mineral mix. 99% of those are made in China. And you can tell when you read the ingredients, if the vitamins are sulfates, that's the cheap bad stuff. If it's a proteinate, so you'll see like copper sulfate, that's bad stuff. See copper proteinate, that's better stuff. So it's how the minerals are made and processed and how the body can utilize them. So Stella's uses the low quality vitamin mineral mix. So that's one of my reasons I don't like them. The other reason I don't like them is because we talked to an employee who said that they use 4D meats. 4D meats are those ones that were on the back of the truck that sat out in the field and have cancer. And so their basic 4D meat is animals that have died other than by slaughter. So the meat that goes on our plates that we all eat, that was slaughtered to be made as meat that's healthy to eat. What happens to all the cattle that die, or the chickens that die on the way to the plant, or out in the field, where they were sick and they're down? Well, the farmer's gonna call somebody to come pick them up. That's what 4D is, and that's what goes in. So, we need to know the companies, we need to know what they're doing, and we need to know what they're putting in there. Oh, so the farmer's dog, I mean, it's okay, I think they're using good quality, and I think it depends on the recipe that you get. I think they use more carbohydrates than I would like, and maybe they would make one without carbs, but at least it's real food. So if you look at it and you go, so somebody sent me an email the other day, and their dog was eating something noodle-roni, macaroni, something, but it was, you know, kind of like that, where it's a company, and there's a bunch of these small companies popping up, where they're like, well, yeah, we'll make a formulation for your dog and send it to your house. Like, I had somebody call me and say, will you make pup loaf for my dog? And I'm like, well, yeah, but you can make pup loaf. We can get the pup loaf. I said, yeah, but you can make pup loaf, it's not that hard. She goes, yeah, I don't cook, I don't wanna cook. I'm like, you really wanna pay me to make pup loaf for your dog? Like, seriously? I don't have time, so I said no, but, so that's all what they're doing. It's just a company that's putting together a home cooked meal, but they're making sure that it's balanced, so that whether they're adding vitamins and minerals or they're doing it with real food. So what I prefer is to find a company that's not using a synthetic vitamin mineral mix, and they're getting the nutrition actually from the ingredients in the food. So when you see the vitamin mineral mix that's in there, that kind of tells you right off the bat, this food has been processed to the point where I have to add vitamins and minerals back in. So that's, you know, just a little trick. And if you see sulfated vitamins and minerals, you know you're in trouble. So that's gonna be lower quality.
Now, when you talk raw food, do you cook it at all? Okay.
So-
Because I have issues
With raw.
messing with raw
Okay.
chicken and
Yeah,
all
sure.
that.
Sure, that's why these companies
So
that
I
make,
kind of flash cook them?
you can do whatever you want. So here's the thing. The less processed, now this goes for us as well as our pets. The less processed the food is, the more nutrition it holds. There are some things, however, that our pets do a really raunchy job of digesting. They don't do a good job at digesting vegetable matter. So vegetables absolutely need to be processed in order to provide nutrition to our pets. So they can be processed by lightly cooking. They can be processed by running them through your NutriBullet or your blender or your food processor. They can be processed by being fermented. And so there's some pet food companies out there that use fermented vegetables. So that's what we need to do in order to get our dogs to actually digest them. So, you know, if you feed a carrot and they chew up a carrot, you'll see a lot of pieces of carrot come out the other end because it wasn't processed enough. So the meat, if you want to lightly cook, no problem. Just the more you cook it, the higher the temperature you cook it, the longer you cook it, the more nutrition we take out. Now, with that said, I crock pot a lot of recipes for our dogs. And the reason I crock pot is because from a Chinese medicine perspective, your gut is the most, well, actually from any perspective, the gut is the most important part of the body. 80% of our immune system is in our gut. So if you don't take good care of that, you don't have good anything. So if you're getting sick all the time, you better look at what you're eating and get your guts in good order. Same with your pets. When we crock pot, we're cooking something on low temperature, so we're not, you know, that rendering thing where they're putting it at really high temperature and just melting it down into goo. When we cook in a crock pot, we're cooking at a low temperature, so it's low and slow, basically. And it kind of pre-digests the food. So when we take that and we give that to our pets or to ourselves, our guts kind of go, huh, I don't have to work very hard. That's kind of half digested already. I'll just slide that on through. So when I have old sick dogs that are really kind of down and out, I will crock pot for them. And then I will actually take it and run that through the blender. So I make it into soup. So if you've got a sick old dog and you're not quite sure how to get nutrition into them, they're not so interested in eating, we can blenderize some crock potted food. Like, so when Myra, our little Cavachon, had her intestinal lymphosarcoma, we were having a hard time getting food in. So we were crock potting rabbit, we were doing cooling foods because she had a hot cancer eating her bowel. And so we crock potted a balanced diet with rabbit, in the rear. And then we ran it through, rabbit's hard to, and then ran it through the blender and made soup for her. So she could eat soup.
You put vegetables in them? in the
Yeah,
crock
yeah.
pot?
So for
What
the
kind of
meals,
vegetables do you
so you can use anything. You can really use anything, and every single piece of food. So when I design a diet, everything that I'm putting in there has a reason. So broccoli, good anti-cancer food. I mean, that stuff's good. Cauliflower, really good. Shiitake mushrooms. You want to fight cancer? We should eat shiitake mushrooms every single day of our life. Our dogs should have that in every single meal they eat. Or you can use a mushroom capsule, I don't care. Yes?
Now, if the dog's having fungal problems, there was a powder of the mushroom.
Yeah,
That
feed it.
was really good for the skin and coat and everything. But if they've already got a fungal infection, you don't wanna give them that, right?
Yeah, you do. Mushrooms are draining. They're a yin tonic, so they give moisture.
Even though they're a
They're
fungus.
cooling and they're draining, yeah. Different kind of fungus.
Oh, okay.
So fresh shiitake.
Fresh shiitake.
And cook them in the crock pot.
You can cook them in the crock pot, you can just chop them up, I don't care how you give them. There's a great website called Fungus Among Us. You can just buy mushroom powders, organic mushroom powders. We go to Whole Foods. I don't know if they have Whole Foods here, but, and Whole Foods might change now that they're owned by Amazon, who knows. But at Whole Foods, they have big bins of organic shiitake mushrooms that are just loose, and you buy them by the gazillions. So I use them a lot for cancer fighting. So I like to, every single day I'm fighting cancer with my pets.
And these are the ones that aren't dry. They're like.
You can use the dried ones, just rehydrate them, I don't care. I use the fresh ones.
So I could throw, say, your chicken in a crock pot for, I have a dog who has, he's old, he's 13, and he has, tumors on his, parathyroids. So I'm trying to keep him.
Is he hot or cold?
He's medium. He's a golden retriever, but he doesn't pan, and he's hypercalcemic, but he doesn't drink a lot. He's
Good.
he has, he's asymptomatic. The only reason why we found out this is we took over his blood panel, old senior dog, and he had high calcium, high phosphorus. Okay, why? So then they said, he might have a tumor on his parathyroids. He has 2 9-millimeter parathyroid tumors.
So what are you putting in your crock pot beside your chicken?
Chicken, and then it's probably not the right thing, a little low sodium chicken broth, just to make it with the chicken. And that's it, and then I was under the impression he had to give some kind of a kibble for to clean his teeth, because he can't.
Right.
Oh, there's a fallacy. So carbohydrates.
So I mix it up, and then I
Okay.
also use turmeric,
Let's fix your dog. Right now, we're gonna fix her dog. You have in mind, we fix her dog?
because I asked you this. And I brought this for you to see if this goes on his food twice a day. And it's turmeric, because I thought that would shrink his tumors.
I have my contacts in, so I have a hard time reading. Is it just straight turmeric? Oh, there it is. Coconut
Actually,
oil
the
powder,
wine mix.
turmeric, resveratrol, and black pepper. Yeah, it's okay.
It's for horses, but they have
Oh,
to
yeah,
have for
that's fine.
dogs.
Buy the horse size, you got a big dog. Cheaper. All right, so kibble. Let's talk about cancer. Now let me show you. This is my latest project, and I'm going to get these, and they're going to be on my website. So, Dr. Ian Billinghurst, he's a veterinarian in Australia. He was the first one to come to America and say, you need to feed raw food to your pets. You're killing your pets, you need to feed raw food. And he designed the BARF diet, the biologically appropriate raw food, or bones and raw food. It's been named a lot of things. I just did a radio show interview with him. I think it airs on the 21st of August, maybe. But he just wrote this book on cancer, and it took him about 15 years to get this thing put together. And I'm halfway through, and it talks a lot about molecular biology. Let me tell you, it's made for the pet owner. There's not too many pet owners who are going to survive the molecular biology part. He tried to dumb it down as much as he could, and I said, Ian, I was going to do a book on cancer, but I don't need to because you just did a book on cancer. And now I'm trying to read his book on cancer. I'm like, I got to do a book on cancer because I got to get it down to 150 pages and make it so that you guys get what we're talking about. But he basically has proven, the man's a genius. Cancers grow on carbs. That's what they use for their energy source. They use sugar as their energy source. And if we get rid of sugar, we get rid of cancer. Which is why I said I am on a cancer hunt all the time, and I am on cancer prevention all the time. Do you know what the statistics are for your dog to get cancer if he lives past 10? Over 50%. If your dog lives to 10, it's going to get cancer. In our house, we got cancer all over the place with our dogs. Scout had squamous cell carcinoma taken off his toe and his knee 2 years ago. Abby had mammary adenocarcinoma, aggressive, taken off 2 years ago. Freckles had a mammary adenocarcinoma a month after Abby. They're not on chemo, they're not on radiation, they're on herbs and diet. And that's how we keep it away. I have a 16-year-old standard poodle in my practice, came in with an aggressive adenocarcinoma, last mammary gland, didn't get clean margins, they didn't want to do chemo, she was 11, she's now 16.
Wow.
Herbs and food.
What
That's
herbs
I'm
are
trying to
you
do with this
using?
golden.
Depends on the cancer.
It's golden because you can only find one surgeon here that will do surgery, because then you go from hypercalcemia to hypo.
It's a dangerous surgery,
And
so
it's
why
a
don't we
dangerous
try to
diet.
control it with diet?
That's where I went with that, and it's also $10,000.
Yeah, well, bring it down. But to cut is to cure, so if you can surgically remove a cancer completely before it has spread anywhere else, and that's the key, because by the time we diagnose most of them, they've already spread, even though we can't see it. But if you have a tumor where you can get the entire tumor, then you're gonna cure. If you can't get the entire tumor, which in that particular case maybe you could, but then you're gonna have other side effects and other problems.
So it's where with him being 13, he's never been out of our sight. We don't board him, we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
tell him.
it's gonna be
He
stressful
would
for
probably
all
die.
involved.
Yeah, they said.
So let's fix his diet. No carbs. Get rid of his kibble, go home and throw it away. Donate it to the shelter, I don't care what you do with it, get rid of it. Here's my problem, people give me kibble and I can't even donate it to the shelter because I know how bad it is. Like I feel too guilty. Like, oh, those poor dogs, I can't do that to them. I'm like, oh, then they might not get anything. Well, anyway, it's a problem for me. So, we're gonna get kibble out of his diet. Chicken is a hot protein. Now, your dog may or may not be hot, but cancer's hot. Cancer's hot. So I would rather use something that's neutral. I mean, is your dog really hot or really cold, one or the other?
No, he just.
Seems pretty
He
normal.
hangs out, yeah.
Hangs out, okay. So, I'd probably get rid of chicken, only because it's hot and cancer tends to be hot. So I'd go with something that's a little more neutral. And this, when you have cancer, this is the time when you say, I'm gonna spend the money, I'm gonna buy organic. You need to do it. I mean, we should all do it all the time, but, you
Yeah,
know.
he eats organic chicken.
Okay, great, can you get organic beef?
Yeah, Sam's Club, or
Grass-fed?
you can get it all.
My husband says the dog eats better than he does.
Well, we only eat organic meats in our house as humans, so.
Good, so let's get some organic hamburger, organic chicken, I mean, organic beef, whatever. We could get away with turkey.
I was gonna say organic.
Yeah, we could get away with turkey, it's gonna be a little more neutral. And if we can get grass-fed organic beef, we could do that. You know, we could throw a little, wild-caught fish at them. We do need to have, I'll give you two options here. We can throw veggies and stuff in your crock pot, or if you want the easy way, you can buy Dr. Harvey's Paradigm Base Mix, Paradigm. It's made by Dr. Harvey's. They just made this as a cancer-fighting diet. It's to make basically a ketogenic diet, which is what Dr. Billinghurst talks about. So the cancer diet that we are looking for is going to be 0 carbs, or as close as we can get. We're going to use vegetables and spices or herbs that are going to go against the cancer. And we can have fat in the diet. We also want to use calorie restriction. So you want to underfeed your dog a little bit. You want the dog to be a little bit starved.
You know, it's funny, he's kind of done this himself. He stopped eating kibble, he doesn't like it. And the only way I can get it to do it is, that's how I started doing this crock pot, is to put that, the good stuff
On top.
because I
Yeah.
thought he had to have it for his teeth.
Right, he does not. So that's a fallacy. Carbohydrates break down to sugars, sugar sticks to the teeth, causes dental disease.
So the non-cancerous small little tumors, they get this plan where we're good for the older dog to get the small tumors that develop as they get older.
So anything-
The fatty tumors that
Yeah.
under the
So
skin.
anything that is a few millimeters or less, and like, you know, warts, lump, those little
Right.
tiny lumps and bumps, you can probably ignore those. You can probably
What
pretty
is
much
it
ignore those.
covered in those warts or moles or whatever?
So the little papillomas, if they're covered in those, we call them cocker warts or poodle warts because we see them in those guys all the time. When they're covered in those, that's an immune system that's not working.
Right.
Those are viral. And that's an immune system that can't get rid of them. So we need to strengthen the immune system. Okay?
Yeah, the
So-
vet removed some and then they all came back and get tripled.
Oh yeah, they'll come back, you take off 10, you'll get 30.
That's what we did.
Because you stress the immune system even
Yeah.
more with surgery.
You know, we had ear and eye infections, yeast infections.
Yeah, so we gotta get carbs out of the diet.
Okay.
Get carbs out of the diet, your yeast is gonna go away. So do you wanna do Dr. Harvey's paradigm, or do you want a crock-pot diet?
I can do either, I'm stay home.
You're stay-at-home mom. She's stay-at-home doggy mom. Okay, so,
When you feed raw, amount wise, like if it calls for a certain size dog to have a cup and a half of food a day, 2 cups, how do you go about with raw?
it's gonna be the same. So if your dog should eat 2 ounces of food a day, it's either 2 ounces of raw, 2 ounces of kibble, 2 ounces of canned, 2 ounces of whatever,
Oh.
2 ounces of crock-pot. Whatever it is for your dog, it is. Don't believe what they say on the labels of dog food. They're selling dog food, they make dogs fat. Oh, your dog needs 17 cups of food a day. Oh, really?
What about a dog who had fatty lumps or a warty lump and had several, lived them along, was all fine, but a couple she messed with, they leaked, they were icky, got them
Oh,
all
yeah.
expressed, but now won't completely heal up.
So they're not.
Should you remove those things?
I would if they're non-healing, because they're looking to turn into cancer, if they're not already.
Okay,
Get them off and get them tested.
okay.
Just kind of one more question. I have a breeder dog. So she goes to the breeders to have her pups. She's gonna be there 7, 8 weeks.
What's the
And
breeder
they
feed?
say bring your food for your dog.
Good.
So.
Bring your
will
raw
you just
food.
make up a bunch?
Or
and
bring your
freeze
cooked
it?
food, freeze it in containers, my freezer's full.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, I thought.
Freeze it,
Kibble,
freeze it in single serving portions. Take your cooler with you and say, I hope you have freezer room.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, so for your dog, things that are gonna fight cancer. So pick whatever meat you want. We've gotta have some organ meat in there as well. So whether you're doing beef or turkey or whatever, we wanna add about 10% liver. So if you have a pound of meat in there, then you need 1/10 of a pound of liver. If you can get heart, or if you're doing turkey, if you can get gizzards, those actually count as muscle meat. Throw as much of those in there as you want. Like feeds like. You have a dog with heart failure, feed heart. You have a dog with liver failure, make sure you got some liver in the diet. When you read labels where it says byproducts, that's the organ meat. It's actually very, this is one of the arguments that the pet food companies make. Well, organ meat, byproducts are very good for dogs. Yeah, they are, we need them. You need them. So you try to find some heart or some gizzards. A lot of times in our grocery store, I'll find packages of gizzards that also have some heart in there. I don't know, they just fall off the chicken into there. I don't know how.
HEB up here?
No.
No, go to the Asian market.
Asian market?
Gotta go to
Central
Waco.
Market South, and you can get whole packages.
Whole Foods, in their freezer section, you can find the organic liver and some weird stuff in there sometimes. So we want to have about 10% liver, and then we want to have some other organs in there to kind of bulk it out as well. And then as far as the veggies that we're going to use, the only starch that I will use in these diets, because it's not really that starchy, is butternut squash.
Oh.
So if you can get an organic butternut squash, here's a funny story. We had to dig a trench across our yard to put new electric lines out to the barn. And then they filled it in, and then over the winter, it sunk. So we had this big 2-foot deep trench all the way across our backyard. So we compost our manure and all the kitchen waste. So we took all that composted stuff and we filled in our pit very nicely. And then spring arrived and all the seeds that were in our compost popped up. Our entire backyard is covered in butternut squash right now. And so my mom has a friend who came over and she has a farm stand and she's like, oh my gosh, we can't get this right now. We're like, will you please come pick butternut squash? We probably have 1,000 butternut squash in our backyard. What are we gonna do with all these? We're gonna make a lot of dog food. All right, so butternut squash you can use. So how big's your crock pot? How many pounds of meat do you usually do at a time?
I have a big family size.
Big humongous one? Yeah, so you can fit probably 4 or 5 pounds of meat?
Yeah.
4 or 5 pounds a week.
Yeah, so then you can get some more meat, so you can probably do a whole butternut squash. He does all the cooking. I would throw asparagus in there, very, very nicely draining. Get some fresh ginger root. You don't want to make your dog turn off to it, so maybe like a tablespoon of fresh ground ginger root. We want the fresh stuff, not the dried stuff. To that, I would probably put in at least 8 ounces of shiitake mushrooms. What else do we put in there? Broccoli. We need broccoli, so probably 8 ounces of broccoli in there. Trying to think what was in Myra's stew. You could put cauliflower. Broccoli and cauliflower are pretty interchangeable, so you could use either one of those. You could use zucchini, any of the fresh veggies. So you could use green beans because we do need a little bit of fiber.
But all these should be processed somehow.
Well, she's crock potting.
Okay, so but the vegetables,
So they're
either
going-
cook them or puree them.
Right. If you're going to feed them raw, they got to be pureed,
Okay.
or you can cook them.
Dishes for kids, they love that shiitake mushroom.
Do you
Add the vegetables in the end? Do you add the vegetables in the end?
No, I throw everything in together and just turn my crock pot on. And we usually crock on low for the 8 hours rather than high for the 4.
I do that too.
Yeah.
So when you say beef, are you just gonna go buy an organic?
You can buy ground beef, you can buy chuck roast, I don't care what you buy. If
Oh.
you're buying a roast, please cut it up into cubes, something your dog can chew.
It can be high fat content.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it can be
chuck roast.
fairly high because you've got a golden retriever who is not a breed prone to pancreatitis. If you have spaniels, Yorkies, Maltese, poodles, dogs who are more prone to pancreatitis, you gotta keep your fat content lower on your meat. For the big guys, they're usually like, yeah, no problem. So the Paradigm would also work as a base mix, which has all the vitamins and minerals and everything in there. So to that diet that we just made, we're gonna be low in vitamin D. Vitamin D comes from 2 things, either egg yolks or fish. So we can either add a vitamin D supplement, or what I would do if that was my dog, is I would hard boil a whole bunch of eggs, and to every meal I would throw an egg in.
Is it okay to give them scrambled eggs?
Scramble them, I don't
Because
care.
I eat scrambled eggs in the morning.
Fine. Make sure he has eggs every day.
He eats eggs every
Now
day.
give him his vitamin D.
Yeah, he always eats eggs.
I would add an omega-3 supplement for him. What's he weigh?
He's right now at 75, which is good. He was down to 70, he quit eating, and that's when I started giving him.
Yeah, well, he's gonna like mom's food. They all like the Paradigm pretty well too. So I would get about 2,000 milligrams of omega-3 per day. That's not 2,000 milligrams of fish oil, it's 2,000 milligrams of omega-3. So when you get an omega-3 supplement, look at the side of the bottle, and it'll have on there, it should have on there, the milligrams of DHA and EPA. Those are the omega-3s. So you add those 2 together, and that gives you the total omega-3. So you might buy a 2,000 milligram fish oil capsule, it might only have 300 milligrams of omega-3. So you have to really look at that. And also, again, we've got a dog with cancer, we want really pure fish oil. So you want to be from Norwegian waters, Icelandic waters, New Zealand waters. You don't want to be
Human
from America.
Human vitamin D?
You can use, the human vitamin D, the problem with that is it comes in very, very strong capsules that are too strong.
Oh,
That's a 75-pound dog, so that dog only needs maybe 1,000 units,
Now, have you
maybe,
seen
of
the
vitamin D, and it's hard to find capsules that small.
pump with, it's a metal?
Yeah, Iceland Pure.
That's what
That's
I
what we
put on
use.
our dogs food.
Yeah, perfect.
So he's already has that.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I like.
Both dogs.
Yep. Yeah, so I'd use that.
Yeah, I have a young dog and an old dog.
Yeah, so you'll be in pretty good shape with this guy.
And I
That
have a golden and.
if we can,
Cavalier.
a lot of people with Goldens have Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are like the miniature Goldens. A lot of Golden breeders are going to
But
Cavaliers.
we love
'cause
this
it's-
golden and we know, he's 13. And
He's
the-
13-year-old Golden, you did well.
The little, exactly.
He didn't get lymphoma or hemangiosarcoma.
No, he just got this, like I said, it was unlucky that we found it because he's asymptomatic.
Yep.
So
Good.
now in treating this cancer, will that help because now the vet's going on about, well, he's going to calcify that.
Well, he's gonna wanna make bladder stones, for
Right.
sure,
Is there something?
This'll help.
Okay, so this will help.
but the other thing he needs is really high moisture diet, so this is gonna be high moisture. Because if he does start making stones, the more we flush through, so the more moisture in, the more moisture out.
He
Keep
has
flushing,
none.
flushing.
Right now, he's been scanned, he has no stuff.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, when we went in for the surgery, the next step was to, because the surgeon said, well, you probably
negative.
13.
They get so negative.
Yeah.
He's 13, but I want him to live to be 17, thanks.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, yeah, so, you know, if you're standing there talking to the vet, I'm gonna get on my anti-vet spiel. If you're standing there,
Yeah.
if you're standing there and they give you, your dog's got diagnosis, you got a diagnosis of cancer, you might as well put him to sleep now. Just walk out the door.
Yeah.
Just walk out the door. You know, when Myra got diagnosed with her lymphosarcoma of the bowel, first diagnosis was, oh, she's got the cat form. Well, that's really weird on her biopsy. She's got the cat form, that's really weird, that's the slow growing one. Yeah, we probably don't even have to do anything until she becomes symptomatic, might be a couple years. Well, I like that sounds good to me. Then we did the staging from the lymph nodes and went, oh, she's got the dog form, it's gonna be really aggressive. I went, well, that's not so good. Well, we probably should start chemo based on that. Well, okay. Well, it didn't matter because within a week, she had tumors popping up everywhere in her bowel. So I was like, well, I guess we probably should do that chemo because I don't know what else to do at this point. And it's the last time I'm ever going to do chemo. I'm not going to do it again. I think we would have lost her. We lost her in 8 weeks, and I think we would have lost her either way. But the chemo was not fun. Really not fun. And after reading Ian's book, yeah, nobody in my family is getting chemo or radiation. You can't cure it with surgery and diet, then she's going to die. But we're going to die happy.
It just increases.
Were you feeling something different than the others? I just got a foster dog with
So Myra,
lymphoma,
yeah, so we'll go back to Stella and Chewy's. So when I have dogs with severe allergies, and pretty much everything that we rescue comes in as a disaster because they're all eating Scout and Freckles came with a plastic shoebox full of kibble that had maggots in the bottom. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I wonder why your skin looks so bad. Myra was fed treated dog chow her entire life, and her allergies were horrible. Her ear canals were closed, her skin was nasty. Everything was a mess. And I said, all right, well, we need something hypoallergenic, and I can allergy test them, which I always do anyway. The food allergy testing is a little iffy, but like I said, rabbit is rarely an allergen. So I said, all right, we'll go with rabbit. Well, there are a lot of companies that make frozen raw rabbit. Stella happens to put less other stuff in theirs than the other companies. So Myra is really interesting. She, we ended up finding out, was allergic to fish oil. She was allergic to fish. So we were at an expo somewhere, and I shorted what I took with us. We had her with us, and I shorted hers, and I didn't have enough Stellas. And so somebody was nice enough to run to a pet store and get some frozen raw rabbit, and they came back with Nature's Variety. I said, all right, well, it's still rabbit, and I read the ingredients, and I went, there's a little more stuff in there, but we'll see what happens. Oh my gosh, she ate it, and an hour later, this dog literally turned bright red from head to toe, everything swelled, she was an itchy mess, she was miserable. And so the reason I stick with Stella's rabbit is because they have less other stuff. So if you have a dog with allergies and you're trying to figure out, could this be a food allergy? And I'm trying to get rid of all the allergens and all the extraneous noise that food could be causing. The Stella's frozen, not the freeze-dried, the frozen has worked the best in my hands. And that's the only reason I stick with, this is why I have to kind of stick with Stella's a little bit. I don't even know their sourcing of the rabbit, I don't want to know. When I asked the guys at All Provide, I said, can we make a rabbit diet? We really need a rabbit diet. Please make me a rabbit diet. And they said, okay, well, the only rabbit that's clean enough for us to use is from France and Italy. It's going to be $22 a pound. And then we got to ship it in and process it. So how much are people willing to pay for the food? I went, So that might even push my buttons. I think that's, I don't think we can do that. But that's, they're crazed about their sourcing, and so they're not willing to do it if they can't source it well. Most rabbit in this country comes from China. And we all get a little scared about, what's coming in from China. There are some big rabbit farms in this country now. I haven't asked Stella's where they I don't talk to them anymore, so I don't know where they're getting the rabbit. I do use the rabbit. So that's what Myra was eating. She had been eating the rabbit for a good year. And then, I looked at her child and I said, you're a little pale, you're a little deficient. And I found this with all my dogs that are on rabbit long term. It's a very cold protein, as the proteins go. And they'll start to get pale. And so you'll see that pale tongue. Their energy's not quite as good. And they basically get a deficiency. So if I have a healthy dog, I'm gonna rotate my proteins. So for my healthy dog, I want him to have a little poultry. So whether that's duck, chicken, turkey, whatever, I want a little poultry. I want some mammal. So the mammal can be beef, it can be pig, whatever. I want some mammal. And then I want some fish. So for my dogs that don't have food intolerances, we're rotating. Now,
So
this
you
is-
can't mix them?
you can mix it all in one pot, sure. Make one big fun meal.
That was the mess.
You can do it that way. You know, for my guys, I also look at it and I go, you know what? I don't want to eat dry Triscuits in a bowl every meal. I don't want to eat the same thing every meal. Yeah, I'm gonna have chicken stew today, and I'm having beef stew tomorrow, and you know, I switch it up for them.
That's true, because they do get tired of it.
Well, yeah, it makes it fun for them.
Um,
Makes it fun for me.
How do you get them to eat fish, though? Mine turns their nose up and walk away.
Yeah, some dogs don't like
Any
it.
fish.
We had Scout and Freckles, they would not touch fish,
Yeah.
so they just don't get it.
Okay.
Actually, Scout can't even tolerate fish oil. Like I can't do. He just there's no omega-3s in that boy's diet. It makes me crazy. He gets egg yolks. That's the only place I
Oh,
get it.
okay, so that'll work.
Well, they're not as good, but you know, you do what you do because for some of them you can't. Most dogs, you know, open a can of sardines, throw them on food, they love them. Our Cavaliers are like, woohoo! Yeah, and you also look at the origin of the dog. So Cavaliers come from the UK, they eat a lot of fish. You know, that's like a normal thing. But you have to look at what their ancestral diet would be. So you know, look at the Huskies and the dogs that are from up, you know, Alaska.
Is all of the fish a dark fish? I mean, like salmon and that kind of fish, or is it?
No, so you can actually, there's white fish, and when we allergy test the dogs, we test for white fish versus salmon and the oily fish. And so some pets will tolerate a whitefish oil. So the Iceland Pure that she was talking about, they make a sardine and anchovy, which is a whitefish oil, and then they make a salmon oil. Now, when I'm looking at giving oils to my pets, the fish oils, I don't, and it just makes it more complicated for you, and I'm sorry. So you can do whatever you want, but I tend not to give salmon oil as my only fish oil. Because if we look at heavy metal toxicity, the bigger the fish, the longer it lives, the more metals it's going to store. So I look at that, and you know, this is nitpicking, but I look at it and I go, well, okay, I want the oil from the salmon because it's richer than the whitefish oil, so I'll use that 2 days a week. And then the other 5 days, I still need to get my omega-3, so I'm going to use the whitefish oil. So that's nitpicking. That's like, okay, I gotta have 2 bottles on the shelf, and I gotta remember that I'm using this one on Wednesday and Sunday, and the rest of the, you know. That's nitpicking.
Like, you need a pill box.
Oh, we have pill boxes, but this trip, so we have 7 dogs, and they all have their pill boxes for AM and PM. This trip, we're gone for 13 days. So we've been spoiling the pet sitter with these nice little boxes. This time I said, you're not getting a box, because that would mean I need 2 boxes for each dog. We're not going there, so I just made a 4-page list. And then there's 75 bottles on the counter. And then I had to give my mom the list and say, just in case something ever happened to the pet sitter, and oh, God forbid, because man, I don't know what the dogs are gonna get, it'll be a free-for-all.
Do you just open the capsule and put it on the food?
You can do it that way. So somebody asked me in a consult today,
Salmon oil pump. Yeah, you just.
yeah, the Iceland Pure is a pump.
It's just a pump.
So
And
easy.
as far as Cavaliers, I do 2 pumps, is that about right?
That's fine.
And twice a day though, is that too much?
You're using a lot, but if the dog's not getting diarrhea, it's fine.
So it's
fine.
called a what? What's
It's
it called?
pure Iceland.
Iceland Pure.
Pure.
Iceland
You can get
Pure.
on Amazon.
Yes, it's on, I have it on Amazon, I have it on my website. Iceland Pure. No, it's Iceland Pure fish oil.
And it lasts a long time.
Oh, yeah. Well, it comes in a little bottle, a medium bottle, and a big bottle.
I guess I
You probably buy the big bottle. So somebody asked me in a consult earlier today, you know, you get all these supplements and medications,
No, it's for that.
and it'll say, you know, this one should be given an hour before food, this one should be given an hour after food, this one should be given with food. And as a matter of fact, even my wellness supplement says I forget an hour before, after, whatever, it should be given with food, whatever. Here's the thing, there's ideal and there's real life. We got 7 dogs, we got 16 jobs that we do, it goes in the food bowl. So we make the food, we throw the stuff in there and go have at it. Because I can't do it. I can't be that crazy. So if you're what I call a metal personality, which is I have to have all my ducks in a row, and you know, and the client that I use as my example all the time. He brought his little corgi puppy in and it was way too skinny. And I said, well, what are you feeding? And he told me what kibble and how, you know, he was feeding it 3 times a day. I said, well, we need to raise the amount of food by about 25% because this dog is way too thin. And he goes, well, I feed 17 pieces of kibble 3 times a day. So how much more do I need to feed? Okay. And I'm like, well, 25% of 17 is about 4, so I guess we're going to 21 pieces 3 times a day. Like, seriously, this is like, that's the metal percent, and you are the people that make me crazy, because you want everything measured, and you want exact everything. No, here's how I cook. Oh, I like that little, yes. Hugh used to be that metal person who measured everything when he cooked. Not anymore. He's now become the king of throwing it in the pot. I broke him. Thank God.
So when you're rotating your proteins, do you want to rotate, like if you figured out your dog is a yang or a yang, do you want to stay within that?
Yeah, so if your dog's too hot, and you're saying, okay, I need poultry. So let's look at poultry. We got chickens that are real hot. We got ducks that are pretty cold. We got turkey that's somewhere in the middle. So if you've got a hot dog, well, you don't want to use chicken. Pick from the other 2. If you got a cold dog, probably don't want to feed him duck. Pick from the other 2. So we go over to the mammals. Okay, we've got beef, which is going to be neutral or hot depending on where we're sourcing. We've got venison, which is hot. We've got lamb, which is hot. We've got pork, which is neutral to cool. We've got rabbit, which is very cool. So we pick from those, and then the same with the fish. We could, you know, there's hotter fish and colder fish.
Do you find that a dog will, if they're not one that just starts to immediately, a little more discriminating, will they tend to sort of
Self-regulate.
about
So,
behaving?
I have a good story about that. So when I first started getting into food, most dogs, they're foodaholics. Most dogs, you can put anything in the bowl and they don't care, they'll eat it. But when I first started getting into food therapy and learning about the energetics of food, I thought, well, I'm gonna do an experiment. And I had just come home from the grocery store, and at that time, I had 2 Dobermans and a Rottweiler. Kind of changed to Cavaliers and Spaniels. So, but I had these 3 big dogs, and I had all these groceries, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna do a little experiment. So I threw the dogs outside, and I started unpacking my groceries. I had a watermelon, and I had some chicken, and some beef, and some, I don't know, I had all these different things. Fruits, veggies, you name it. And I put it all on the floor, and I'm thinking, so here's a good way to waste your food money. So I put all this stuff like spread all over the kitchen. Big mess. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna let these dogs in, I'm gonna see. Now, you know, in my mind, I'm going, yeah, they're gonna eat the tenderloin that I just bought. Of course, you know, like what dog in his right mind isn't gonna do that? So I let them in. They come in and they see all this, and they run around and they smell from one thing to the next to the next. That darn Rottweiler ate the watermelon. Passed up the meat and jumped on that watermelon. Now the other night, so we have all this butternut squash growing in our yard. There was 1 cantaloupe growing in there. One little cantaloupe that I looked at and I was like, oh, it's almost ready to cut. The other night we let the dogs out. Millie, our 16-year-old female cocker, doesn't come back in. Where's that dog? I go searching through the backyard. Oh, she's in under all those plants. She ate the cantaloupe. I know. I'm like, that was my cantaloupe. I had 1. She ate it. Actually, she ate half, and I stole the rest from her because I'm like, oh, there's diarrhea coming. Gave it to the chickens. They were very happy. So I had a dog, a Doberman. I had a garden. This is way before I knew anything about food therapy. Dogs actually are pretty smart. So he jumped into the garden, pulled up every radish and ate them. Radishes resolve stagnation. He had chronic active hepatitis, liver problem, liver stagnation. He was self-treating. Had another Doberman years later. I was trying to plant an herb garden. I put my yarrow in. He pulled it out and ate it. Okay, take my next yarrow plant, put it in. He pulls it out and eats it. Daggone it, he ate every one of them. I never got any in the ground, so I think I better go look up yarrow. Treats upset stuff. Oh, good. Better look at his diet. This is before I knew anything about all this. So here's my dogs. And they say that what we should do with our horses, we have those too, is that we should just plant herb gardens and we should plant all these herbs in the hedgerow and the horses will self-medicate. They do a pretty good job. We don't usually give our dogs enough choice. So, you know, if you wanted to let your dog choose, well, make him all the different meals and, you know, put them all over your kitchen and see what he does. He might just eat them all.
Well,
she's only 7 months old, but she prefers lamb over salmon, and so I'm just realizing that she probably is, she's a little, you know, low energy.
Low energy, yeah, and so the lamb is giving her more energy than the salmon. Okay, so we've talked about, you know, radishes and yarrow, and so every single food, we can look at every single food that we want to put in their bowl or in our mouth, and it's going to do something to our body. It is going to help our liver feel better. So if you have dogs with liver problems, or dogs with seizures, because seizures are always related to liver problems, dark leafy greens, collards, kale, spinach, get them into the diet. Process them, cook them, don't care, run through your NutriBullet, get some dark leafy greens in their diet. Very, very helpful. We have had, until this week, a search and rescue border collie, worked for the New Jersey Task Force. 7.5 years old, started seizuring at about 1.5 years old. She came to us because she couldn't put him on phenobarbital because then he wouldn't be able to work on the task force anymore. So we were doing acupuncture, food, and herbs for 6.5 years. And he'd have the occasional seizure, but they'd be very mild and no problems at all, and he didn't need medication, and he could continue to work as a cadaver dog. Last weekend, he went into seizures and didn't come out of them and died. But for 6.5 years, we kept him off medication, and his life was great. And I haven't talked to the owner, so I don't know what happened Sunday to know exactly how everything started and why it got so bad. But so there's a lot that can be done for these guys. So when we have kidney disease, your vets, anybody got a dog with kidney disease? Yeah, the kidney disease, they're diagnosing it earlier, which is a good thing. And by the way, if anybody needs to get up and take breaks, go to the bathroom, get drinks, and there's food here, we'll take a break for food. But if you need to get up, you don't insult me, just do what you need to do. So for dogs with kidney disease, traditional veterinarians are going to say we have to really restrict the protein. So they're going to want KD or whatever the other initials are, NF. And that's really a fallacy, that we need to protein starve these dogs. So one of the things that happens is with kidney failure, they're losing protein through their kidneys. Their kidneys are not able to conserve that protein anymore. And so when we starve them of protein by using those low protein diets, they're still going to lose protein in their urine, but they're going to break it down from their muscle. And so what we end up with is very skinny dogs with no muscle that are still peeing protein out into their urine. So I might modify their protein level a little bit, but I will tell you that Freckles, who just died at 16 from nothing related to disease, well, old age, but when we got her at 14, her kidneys on her lab work didn't look so hot. So a traditional veterinarian would say, well, there's no way you can put that dog on a high meat diet. Well, she has eaten a raw diet, which is 90% meat, for 2 years. And her kidney function never got worse, very well managed. The biggest thing for a pet with kidney disease, moisture, 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 moisture. Water in, water out. Kidneys are a water element, keep them wet, keep them happy. So is your dog old?
He's 5 years old.
It's only 5.
He hasn't been diagnosed formally.
Okay.
He just got his lab test on Monday. I only have the blood test. I don't have.
Dealt with it?
Yeah. But it's all over the place.
What's he eat now?
I home cooked for him and also some Origin.
Okay. Interesting, phosphorus is actually low. Oh, so here's, all right, so if your vet uses IDEX lab, this is the new test by IDEX called the SDMA, which supposedly detects kidney disease before the BUN and the creatinine and some of the other things are gonna change. So this, normal's up to 14 and this dog is at 16. So before I would go crazy with this, so if you're home cooking, you're already doing some high moisture, so that's good, but add more work. This test can be falsely high, so I never base my diagnosis that this dog is having a kidney problem on one test. repeat. And repeat it fasted, if the dog wasn't fasted when you got the lab work?
He was.
He was, okay.
Yeah, but he stopped eating for 3 days,
Okay,
and that's why I took him.
and that's why you had this done?
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be falsely wrong because he wasn't eating and had something else going on too. So let's see, thyroid is fine, T4 is fine. Looks
So
like
how
he
are they
was-
gonna get more moisture?
He looks like he was dehydrated, just add water in the food bowl. He was pretty darn dehydrated is what it's, so your SDMA might be high because he was dehydrated.
Yeah.
Did he have a fever?
No.
Nope.
Doesn't even have a high weight somehow. But his lab, and no urine?
No, I'm still waiting on that.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't call this dog in kidney trouble yet.
Okay.
Do we have any idea why he stopped eating?
No,
Nope.
he just stopped eating for 3 days, so I got worried. And
Is he eating now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually, yeah, it's not his normal self yet.
Okay.
but
What
he's
were you
getting there.
feeding before he stopped eating? Same thing?
Thank you. So he, so we get these dogs, they'll stop eating. May or may not have a fever. So either something turned them off to their food. Any vomiting or diarrhea?
Diarrhea.
Diarrhea, okay. So dogs are smart. I get a bellyache, I'm not gonna eat for a couple of days.
Yeah, he usually stops eating once a month for just one day. So that for me is kind of normal in him.
Okay, so is it normal for your dog to stop eating once a month? Does he have diarrhea every time he stops eating?
No.
He
He just skips 1 or 2 meals and then he goes back to his whole.
Man, if my dog misses half a meal, if they take more than 15 seconds to eat a bowl, they freak out. The honest God, there's 7 that go, you know, and if they don't do that, we're like, what's wrong with him?
Yes.
Why did he leave some in the bottom of the bowl? That's not normal. There is something going on. Could be inflammatory bowel.
Yeah, he has allergies.
Okay, so we've got a dog with inflammatory bowel, so we need to make the gut happy. Why does he have allergies? Because his immune system doesn't work, because his gut's not happy. We need to make his gut happy. What do you put in your crock pot?
Turkey, mushrooms, I usually use Brussels sprouts, kale.
Spinach,
Good stuff.
no grains at all.
No grains?
Gizzards,
We
we
skip
use
them.
gizzards.
Okay,
Gizzards and hearts.
okay, good. So you're doing a pretty good job here. So, does he get any eggs or fish?
Yes.
Yeah, sardine, he loves sardine.
Okay, so that's gonna take care of
Large
vitamin D.
boiled eggs.
Okay, and then what are you doing for your minerals and calcium?
I got the RX vitamin.
RX vitamins, minerals. Okay, good. So you're not doing a bad job. That's pretty good. But there's something that's still setting this guy off a little bit. Is he on a probiotic?
Yes.
Which one?
It's from enzymes.
Okay, somebody's not bad. There's still something that's not making his gut quite happy. So I'm gonna give you guys, and this company's gonna love me, and everybody who carries this product is gonna hate me because they're not gonna have it in stock. If we're trying to make guts happy, we need really, really good probiotics, and we need stuff that is easy to digest. So the crock potting is good because that's easy for that dog to digest. And if you're crock potting and you're freezing food and whatever, when you serve it, it should be served at room temperature. Don't take it out of the fridge and pour it in the bowl. Warm it up somehow so you can take your container. If you're not afraid of the microwave, you can microwave it a little bit. You can add hot water. So we have a little Keurig coffee maker for the dogs in their kitchen that we just don't put coffee pods in, we just make hot water. Or you can take the container and sit it in a bowl of hot water. However you want to warm it up, just get it up to body temperature. It doesn't have to be warm, it just needs to be so that it doesn't feel cold to you. Because that's going to be the easiest way for them to digest it. I keep forgetting it's the bird.
That's dash hole. Yeah, there's dash hole in there.
That's dash hole in the back.
You guys. So we want to serve it at room temperature, but we need to have happy gut. Now, I've been using powdered probiotics for years. And I've always thought they've done a pretty decent job. Until about a week and a half ago when I started, so people have been asking me about kefir for years and years and years. And kefir's good stuff. And again, kind of depends. Now, I have never bought kefir. Kefir is fermented cow milk. I've never bought kefir, so I don't know what it looks like in the grocery store. I don't know anything about it, I've never looked at the ingredients. So one of the things, like almond milk, supposed to be so good for us, soy milk, supposed to be so good for us, until you pick up the container, you go, oh look, it's got carrageenan, and it's got sugar, and it's got this, and it's got that. So I've never looked for kefir in the grocery store to see, does it have all that crap added into it that now makes it into trash instead of being something good. However, I do know that Answer's Pet Food makes a fermented cow's kefir. They also make a fermented goat raw
Yeah,
milk.
we give him, goat milk and, goat kefir, but it's from a farm here in the
Perfect.
area.
So the goat kefir, your dog should be getting a ton of that every day.
Okay.
A lot of
What's the dog weight?
He's now on 107.
107.
107.
What?
Yeah, he needs about,
Great Dane mix.
He's a great Dane.
Okay.
for that dog on your kefir, I would be giving at least 10 to 12 ounces a day.
Oh, okay.
10 to 12 ounces a day. So goat kefir, or at least the Answers ladies, so it's sold frozen in like a milk carton, has, per 2 ounces, has 2 billion colony forming units of good bacteria for the gut. That's huge. You can't find powders and pills that are in those numbers. The one that we just started taking, which is actually a very good human one you can use on dogs, is called VSL3, which is a capsule.
B or B?
V is in veterinary, although it's not veterinary. VS as in Sam, L3. It's not cheap, and they ship it to you on ice. Because probiotics are live bacteria, they need to be kept cool. You don't want to cook those guys. So if you're adding them to the food, heat up your food, then add your kefir or your probiotic afterwards, so that you don't cook those little
Well,
guys.
we normally do that. That's dessert.
That's dessert, perfect,
That's what we do.
perfect. So kefir, goat kefir, amazingly, is the only food that is 100% complete and balanced to use for dogs or cats. You could feed nothing else and feed that, and you could have a very healthy pet for life. So we've had a couple pet dogs, big dogs, with IBD, that all we've used is the Answers goat milk, cost a fortune. And, I mean, we've got one bulldog, that's the only thing he can tolerate, and he drinks a gallon a day. And that's his food.
So goat's milk and kefir are
So
equal?
kefir, it tends to be the cow milk
Oh, okay.
made with cow. So you're gonna have differences in fat. The goat milk tends to be about 3% fat, the cow milk will be 6 to 7% fat. So if you have dogs that are prone to pancreatitis, please go goat. But goat, it's perfectly balanced as far as the calcium phosphorus ratio that we need. All the vitamins, all of the amino acids, everything that you need to sustain life is in that. So it's one of the best. So we started, so I did my interview with the Answers ladies, and I've interviewed these ladies many times. I've known them for years. They go to the AFCO meetings, and they're phenomenal. And they've been telling me about their goat milk. They also make a fish stock, a fermented fish stock. If you can stand the smell, great stuff, great stuff. But I have resisted, and I have not used their goat milk because I can't stand the smell of anything goat. So everybody has their stopping point. I tell people to use green tripe. They're like, yeah, that's not coming to my house. It's not coming to my house. We've had it a few times, but ugh. Some people, sardines, that's a stopping point. You know, some people handling raw chicken, chicken livers. Like, I've got a bunch of people, I'm not doing those chicken livers, that's disgusting. So goat, for me, has always been a stopping point. So goat cheese is very popular in restaurants, on salads. We're on the airplane, I get the salad, freaking goat cheese on it. So I'm sitting there picking out the pieces of lettuce that that didn't touch any goat cheese because, oh my God, I just want to like. So I have resisted the whole goat kefir thing from these ladies. And I know how good it is for them, but I'm like, no, that can't be in my house. It can't be in my refrigerator. So Scout's ears have just been such a nightmare. He's had surgery, his ear canals are removed, completely closed, and he still has yeast. What? Crazy. So I said, well, I got no choice, I'm gonna try this. So about a week and a half ago, we went and we bought out the local store, all the Answers goat milk they had, and then we went back this week and bought them out again. And they're like, are you gonna keep doing this? And all my clients are like, well, you can't keep doing that because we need some. And I'm like, well, tough luck. I got there first. But we're gonna start carrying it. But Scout's ears in a week are about 90% better. He also has IBD issues. Millie, the one with the cantaloupe, has IBD issues. So Millie, for the past year, about once every 3 to 4 weeks, skips a meal, and I'm like, trouble's coming. And within 12 to 24 hours, she's blowing vomit and bloody diarrhea. It'll last for about 12 hours, and then she's right back to, okay, where's dinner? Not normal. Not normal, something's brewing. So actually, every one of our dogs is now drinking goat milk because it's phenomenal. So I quit using my powdered probiotics, and I'm going, this is big stuff. This cures a lot of stuff. It's anti-inflammatory.
Now they have the cheese snacks, goat cheese snacks.
Oh, the cheese snacks.
Spirulina, ginger, and turmeric.
Awesome. I've got those too.
I tried them. They're really good.
But see, I can't try them. I can barely get them out of the box without
I like
barfing.
They have
But my dogs love them.
She actually caught me stealing them. In the fridge.
Yeah, so you want to eat your pet's treats. If you like goat cheese, you can eat those because all their stuff is human grade. Cocoa therapy, the coconut macaroons. Oh man,
Well, I was just gonna say, I've been using the Answers goat's milk for a number of years. Because in San Antonio, we get lots of it. And, we have 3 places that carry it. And so, my, at the time, 16-year-old Italian Greyhound, that's this big, stopped eating. And we tried everything, and I go to an integrated vet, and she says, you know, she feels kind of cold. And she is kind of old. I said, that's fine, but she's not gonna starve to death. She wants to die, she's gonna have to find another way. And so we went, and I had been using kefir, but I went and got the goat's milk. And I gave her goat's milk with a dropper for almost a month. That's all she would take, not willingly, because she's mean. And I always swore I'd never have a little mean dog. That's what she is. And so, and she pulled through it.
Yeah.
Now
So,
she eats everything in sight.
we use it a lot at Monkey's house for all those senior dogs that, you know, cancers and heart disease and this and that and the other thing. If you have Cavaliers with heart problems, the goat milk is phenomenal because it's really high in taurine. And they've actually done quite a few studies where they've gotten the murmurs to decrease just by using the goat milk because of the taurine. So it's pretty awesome stuff. So I'm gonna answer a few more questions and then we're gonna take a break and everybody can grab some food.
Would you consider like lipemia a heart issue? My basset hound with the fatty lumps, that's what the vet says she has. And I was doing raw, and we had to switch to prescription food because it's the only thing I tried. Like I tried to take her off of it and go back, even doing low fat, he'll show me the fat in her blood.
So she's lipemic, so we need to use foods that are gonna drain that. So were you making your own raw or were you buying raw?
No, I was doing it myself.
And how were you monitoring the fat content in the meat you were using?
Just buying low fat and cutting fat off and stuff like that.
Using beef, chicken, pork?
Not really much beef, but yeah, chicken and turkey.
Skinless or with skin?
Skinless.
So you could still manage to do it. What we have to do is add foods that are phlegm drainers. Phlegm drainers. So here's where our radishes are going to come in a little bit handy. Carrots are good to resolve stagnation. Clams are actually really good. I don't know if you can get clams here. Canned clams you can do. If you use canned clams, please rinse them. They're very salty. It's fine. Phlegm drainers in here. Phlegm. Clams, crab, lobster, shrimp, garlic, ginger, pepper, peppermint, thyme, basil,
Okay.
radishes. So shiitake mushrooms. So we just need to add a bunch of that stuff to help decrease that and bring it down. Okay. I mean, the dog has a bit of a triglyceride problem. And this kind of makes no sense at all, but when you have a dog who has lipemia, so they have a lot of fat in the blood, you want to give them high doses of omega-3s.
I am doing that.
Okay, so what's the dog weigh?
Just under 50 pounds. She's about an 11-year-old Basset.
So if she's just under 50 pounds, I'd be making sure that I was getting at least 2,500 milligrams of omega-3. Not fish oil, but omega-3. 2,500 milligrams minimum to try to bind it. Okay, let's take a break. Everybody grab food. Keep rolling.
Did you bring some of your good instead?
We're going to finish up food so that we can buzz through a couple more things. So I can give you a list of foods that I like, why I do and don't. I can give you an idea of how to decide how much your dog should eat, because that's always a big problem. And if you hate math, you'll hate how to figure that out. So in my new book that we're working on, Hugh has been working very diligently on making this really nice chart that says if your dog weighs this, feed this. Because I can, people who don't do math, they can't go from, if I say 50-pound dog eats this much, they can't figure out how much a 25-pound dog eats. Seems like simple math to me. Well, let's see. Divide by 2, but people can't do it. I get it, because some people don't have a math brain. I happen to have a math brain, so for me, right there. And of course, then when I start doing math while I'm talking, I'll probably be all over the place. Okay, so let's do math first. So your dog should eat 2 to 3% of his ideal body weight.
Per day?
Per day. So if you have a 100-pound dog, 2% of body weight is 2 pounds.
Need that share there.
2% of body weight for a 50-pound dog is 1 pound.
1 pound of food?
1 pound of food for a 50-pound dog per day.
Okay.
Now let's put that in perspective. A pint's a pound. A pint is 2 cups. Pints with 16 ounces. A cup is 8 ounces. Yes. So it's not that much. It's not that much. But we say 2 to 3%. So 50-pound dog might eat 1.5 pounds. 100-pound dog might eat 3 pounds. It depends on how active your dog is. If you have a couch potato who never moves, we're going 2%. We might even get down to 1.5. If you have an agility dog, if you have a dash, if you have the Jack Russell terrorist, you might need 3% to keep your weight on. For puppies, you're actually feeding what their adult weight is going to be. They eat a lot. So I get these Great Dane puppies that come in and I'm like, look at that, he's eating 6 pounds of food a day. Yeah, they eat a lot. So you can do the math. You can change that into cups and ounces. You can change that into pounds. For the book, we're actually going to do grams for our UK friends. That's far in math to me. I can't do that. And so that's whether you're feeding kibble, canned, dry. So if he needs 4 ounces of food, he needs 4 ounces of food. Now, with that said, for instance, I work with the All Provide company. And the pet food companies are supposed to be, if they aren't already, putting the number of calories on the package. So when you look at the All Provide, it comes in nice little 1 pound packages. And so it will say for the 1 pound of food, the 1 pound of beef has 547 calories. The 1 pound of turkey has 482 calories, whatever. They make it nice and easy. So if you want to know how many calories your dog eats, if your food happens to have calories on the side, it's 20 to 30 calories per pound of body weight per day. So we're still going 2 to 3%. So a 50-pound dog, 20 calories per pound is 1,000 calories a day, which generally translates to about a pound of food. Now, when I make a crock pot, I don't know the exact number of calories in, I don't sit there and figure out, because I'm not a mental personality, I'm not gonna one kibble, two kibble it, so I don't know what the calorie count is in there, but it will work pretty well if I have a 50-pound dog to say he's gonna eat a pound of food a day, which is gonna be 16 ounces of food a day. So if I translate that into cups, that's how many cups I figure out to eat.
That's not too much, I mean, that's, think about it, that's just
It's
2
not very
cups
much,
of food a day.
not very much. Now, small dogs tend to have higher metabolism than big dogs. So my 125-pound Doberman survived on a pound and a half a day. So he was eating less than 1.5%. But he was a sloth. And that's all he needed to keep him going. Whereas Dash, he might need 4% of his body weight to keep him going. So the 2 to 3% or the 20 to 30 calories per pound of body weight, it's a rule of thumb. So, you know, you can't get caught up in, no, she said my dog has to eat 17 pieces of kibble at each meal. But he's skinny, so he needs more. Now, with that said, most people keep their dogs too fat, although you guys have agility dogs, so it's nice today, I haven't seen obese dogs. People tend to want to keep their dogs too fat. You should see a waist. Like they should come up from the rib cage, there should be a waist there. It shouldn't be flat all the way across. You should be able to feel some rib. If you want to prevent cancer, keep them lean. You want to prevent arthritis, keep them lean. The fatter they are, the shorter their lifespan. Purina actually did that study for us. Dogs fed free choice versus dogs that are actually served the proportions that they need will live much longer, like 30% longer. So don't make your pets fat.
What do you recommend for how many meals a day?
I do 2 a day.
Okay.
I like 2 a day.
Is that after they're adult?
Puppies, I do 3 a day up until 14 to 16 weeks.
Oh.
And then I go to 2 a day.
So I can go to 2 today for a 9-month-old.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
And particularly with your puppies, keep them lean.
Okay.
Even if it's a large breed dog, keep them lean. You want to prevent those joint problems. If you make your large breed puppies grow too fast or make them overweight as puppies, you're just begging for hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, you name it. So get your calculator and, you know, put in my dog weighs 92 pounds, multiply by 0.02, and that'll tell you, you know, what.
Do you start your pups on raw food? Do you start your puppies on raw food too?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can. You can. I have one client who shows Great Danes, and she got a Great Dane puppy, and she came to me, she said, I want to feed my dog raw from the get-go. I said, man, I haven't done puppies a whole bunch. Okay, we'll figure this out. And between us, we figured out, man, that dog is gorgeous. Great show dog. So, grew up to be a really nice little guy. All right, so now if you have dogs who are obese and you're trying to get them to lose weight, you want to feed them for their ideal weight. So I had in my book, there's a story about Scanlon, who's a seeing eye dog. He came in at 65 pounds and the owner blew him up to 130 pounds. Doubled his weight. Dog didn't fit in his seeing eye harness, so he couldn't work. Owner couldn't go anywhere because he couldn't get anywhere without his dog. And the seeing eye wanted to take the dog back because they considered it cruelty, which it is. The dog can't open the refrigerator. They had a lot of excuses for why the dog was so fat. So, Hugh and I took the dog for a while. And I tried so the dog at the time was eating Merrick dry food. So we're going back a lot of years before Merrick sold the Purina. The dog was eating dry food, and the owners, actually they might have been feeding pedigree. I think I said, well, I'll try Merrick because it's a little better quality. And I said, I'm going to feed this dog to be a 65-pound dog, and I'm going to be really, really, really strict with what the dog eats. But I'm going to stick with dry kibble because the owners were on a very limited income. And I knew they could not afford to feed Stella and Chewy's or Nature's Variety or one of these raw foods that we had available at the time. So I tried to do it with dry kibble. And so we took this 130-pound, I mean, literally he was a coffee table with little legs and a little nose sticking out. And I said, all right, well, we're going to start an exercise plan. Our driveway was from here to those cars, and he couldn't make it that far. He would just collapse on the ground. He had no energy. He would go to roll on his back, and he'd get stuck and couldn't move. And we'd have to flip it back over. So I said, all right, well, I'll figure out what he needs for 65 pounds. It's about 3 cups of food a day. So I started feeding him that. We split it in 2 meals, a cup and a half each meal. And after the first week, we drag him back to the clinic, weigh him, not an ounce. Week 2, not an ounce. Week 3, not budging. And I'm cutting back his food every week too. So now I'm to the point where I'm like, I'm feeding him to be a 40-pound dog. He's not even getting enough nutrition. Well, what I was doing is just cutting back his metabolism even more. If it could have gotten any slower, but it didn't. And his thyroid levels were fine, so it wasn't that. So I said, well, I'm gonna have to just bite the bullet. I gotta get this dog off carbs. His body cannot process carbs, and I know that's why we're not budging. I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna feed him raw, and then we'll figure it out on the other end. Switched him to a raw diet, so we got the carbs out of there. We went to Stella and Chewy's, and I don't remember which one we were feeding, but we did a frozen raw. And I actually went up and fed him a pound a day. In the first week, he lost 4 pounds. The next week, he lost a couple more. And the next week, he lost a couple more. And then he was starting to be able to walk. So by the end of we had him at our shore house, and by the end of the summer, so we've got all our little Cavaliers and then this tub. And we walked them all over Ocean City, New Jersey. We were putting in 25 miles a week with that dog. Like, we were just walking, and every time we'd stop to talk to people, he would just, like, these people are killing me. So we got him down to just under 100 pounds, and then Hurricane Sandy came along, and our house flooded, and we had disasters and messes. So I called the owner, and I said, you gotta take your dog back. I said, I've got the weight off, he fits in his harness, he can work. You gotta make a deal with me. You gotta continue the exercise program, and you gotta continue feeding what we're feeding. Because if you go back to dry kibble, this dog is gonna blow up to a balloon again. So the deal that I made was I would supply the exact amount of food that that dog needed per week in the Stella and Chewy's tubes, and 1 bag of these little tiny treats that we had. And I gave it to him for free as long as the dog didn't gain any weight at the weekly weigh-in. And he had to bring it in every week for the weigh-in. And at the end of the week, if the dog lost weight, he got food for the following week. Now, he'd have been a fool if he didn't take the deal, and if the dog gained weight, he wasn't getting any more free food. So we did that for quite a few months. He kept losing, he kept losing, he kept losing. And because the owner was mobility challenged, he lived in a senior apartment complex, and he put a sign up that said, I need people to walk my dog. Everybody in that apartment building knocked on that door and said, I'll walk your dog, I'll walk your dog, I'll walk your dog. And that dog walked and walked and walked and walked. And the weight came off. So it is possible. And if you have, so these guys back there were telling me that their vet put the dog on Purina Program weight management. When you buy weight management food, you're paying for sawdust. You're paying a lot of money for peanut hulls or cellulose, which is sawdust. And basically what they do is they don't absorb that, and it just goes out the other end of the pile of poop. You're cleaning up big poop. You're paying a lot of money, and you're slowing down your dog's metabolism more and more and more. So for people who want to lose weight, it's really about upping your metabolism. So you've got to eat some stuff that causes your metabolism to have to work a little bit, which are those nice fibrous veggies. And then you got to get rid of the carbs and the starches. So you got proteins and you got the green stuff that gets you rolling. And that's what we did for this dog, and it worked really, really well. So a lot of times I'll tell people, well, if your dog can't lose weight, then I want you to, just go get a bag of frozen vegetables, the ones that are non-starchy. Steam them, grind them up, frozen green beans, canned green beans, I don't care, put them in your dog's food. Let's rev him up a little bit, give him something for his digestion to have to work at, make him feel like he's full, but we're not increasing calories. So if you have obese pets, I beg you, cats too, I beg you, whatever exercise you can con them into, whether that's going for an extra walk, kitty cats, laser tag is a good thing. If you're going to do laser tag with your kitties, they must, to retain their sanity, actually catch something at the end of that game. If you just do laser tag with your cat and it's going up the wall, I used to do this with my cats, they climb up the walls and they race around. But when they don't catch anything at the end, you have insanity. And you have very poorly behaved animals because they're crazy. So I don't care if you just throw a treat out there at the end, a toy, something that they can actually pounce on and grab. They need the finish to the hunt. Okay, that's all right. kitties snuck in there. But the same goes with your dogs. You know, if you're playing, you know, you can increase activities. You can find, like these people that own the Zoom room, they can give you tons of activities that you can do in your living room every single day to make your dogs be a little bit more active. So it doesn't have to require something really crazy. And another thing that I like for dogs that are kind of bored, there are some, I don't know if you have any, there's some really cool little puzzle toys that you can put the little treats in and have your dogs figure out how to spin those and open the little doors and stuff. Really fun games for dogs. Just use really, really low calorie, high quality treats like the freeze dried meats and that sort of stuff in there. Okay, so we talked about fat and we talked to, okay, foods that I like. Foods that we will feed our pets. So right now, and this, you know, with me, I learn more every day, and our dogs are always the guinea pigs. Yeah, they're the test subjects for everything. So it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. And the more I learn, the more I change. And you know, I'll find a company like Solon Chewy's that I liked originally, and then I go, yeah, I don't like you anymore. We still feed their rabbit to a couple dogs because it does well with their allergies, but I'm adding things to it. So if you have an allergic dog and you want to try to rule out food allergies, then Solon Chewy's frozen rabbit, good way to at least start out, and you can use that for a couple of months and go, oh look, his allergies are clearing up, he looks a lot better. Good, now let's start adding in some other things. Let's throw some chicken at him and see what happens. The interesting thing, if you have a pet that has an intolerance to something, and you clean up their diet, and you make them feel better, and you get everything cured, when you then hand them something like Myra with the fish, oh, they tell you right away. Within 24 hours, they're gonna say, I got diarrhea, I got vomiting, I got yeast, I got itching, I got redness. They let you know really fast. So it's great. Once you do that elimination, then you just start testing. Here, I'll give you an egg, let's see. We'll watch for 24 hours. No, nothing happened. Eggs are good. We'll give you some chicken. Whoops. Okay, no more of that. Wait a few days, let things calm down. Here, have some beef. Well, that worked. Yay. That's the best way to find out what your pet is allergic to. Yes, there are tests, the Gene Dodge NutriScan, the RAS blood serum test that we do. They're not 100%, they're not exact. So when we do those allergy testing, whether we're using saliva or blood, if your pet has never eaten beef in its entire life, it's gonna come up negative because it's never been exposed. So the test is gonna say, yeah, it's fine. I had one dog, test said, dog could not eat chicken, but it could eat beef. It was negative for beef on the test. And I said, all right, well, golden retriever. And I said, okay, let's put this dog on beef. Put the dog on beef. She was back in my office the next day. That dog, I mean, his head was a watermelon, his ears were this thick, golden retriever. I mean, he just had the worst reaction. I said, I guess that test wasn't right. So, more beef.
Now, can dogs have environmental allergies?
Yes.
Okay, so this is separate.
Yes, so separate. But here's the thing with environmental allergies. So Myra, our little Cavachon, that ended up dying of cancer, and her immune system was just destroyed. We got her at age 6. She, when I tested her, had environmental allergies out the wazoo. I mean, you name it, she was allergic to it. So we, you know, your choices with that, you can do the allergy shots, you can do, they now have oral desensitization drops that you can do. And it's pretty effective. It's about 75 to 80% effective to do the desensitization. However, if you get the gut right and you get the gut healthy, the environmental allergies go away.
Because my cat, she does reverse sneezing, runny nose, and regular sneezing. So I brought her in, and she does have, they caught yeast in her ear, which they were really surprised that the cat will ever try that. And they said she has environmental allergies, she needs to take Apoquel the rest of her life.
Yeah, please don't.
So I have not been giving it to her because I was like,
Apoquel is a horrible, horrible immune suppressant. Dogs will die from cancers. They will die from super infections. Please do not use Apoquel. The other thing that is out now is the Cytopoint injection, which interrupts the inflammatory process at one particular step. So it doesn't suppress the immune system. It is different in that effect. It will last anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. It will stop inflammation and stop itching like that within 24 hours. So it's wonderful. However, every time you give an injection, so let's say you get, 7 weeks out, the dog starts to itch again, you're back at the vet, and they go, okay, time for another cytopoint. You give that injection, the dog made antibodies against the first injection. Every injection you give works less and less and less. And now they've got antibodies against that part of their inflammatory reaction process. It's not gonna be a good thing in the long run. So what I tell people is if you have a dog that is they're ripping themselves apart and you need a window to try to fix everything else and you need to use that cytopine injection as a one-time deal, go for it. But if you need to use it multiple times, it's not gonna work. And now we've caused long-term problems. So I don't recommend it. Apoquel, I'm really against. I'd rather give steroids than Apoquel.
They put her on that, they said they had to give her 2 a day for the rest of her life.
Yeah, no. No, and anytime we use something like that, we don't want to use it for the rest of their life. We want to use it short term while we fix the problem. Let's fix the problem. Veterinarians are in the business of selling revisits. They are not in the business of selling good health and preventing you from coming back. So that's going to move us on to vaccinations.
You can tell us the food you like. The good food you like.
Oh dear. Who does like? All right, our dogs, they eat Paradigm, which is the new Dr. Harvey's base mix. It can be fed to any dogs. I don't use a lot of it, but I use a little bit in their bowls because it has all those anti-cancer things in there. Anything I can. The youngest dog in our house is 10, so we got a bunch of 16-year-olds and everybody in between. So if I can do anything at all to help stave off cancer, yes, because statistically, we've got a cancer factory. We got a bunch of old dogs.
Is this freeze-dried?
It's a freeze-dried, so it's a powder, kind of like the Honest Kitchen.
Oh, okay.
And it smells really good. You can smell the cinnamon and ginger in it. It smells really good. So you just add water to it. Yay. Put it in the bowl. Comes a little scoop in there. Tells you how much to feed. And it's meant to be fed. You add your own protein, so your own meat, whatever that's going to be, and your own oil, because we need the fats. So they designed it as a ketogenic diet to fight cancer, but it can be used for any pets as any base diet that you want. So now it's meant to add your own protein. So if you're somebody who only eats organic meats, that's phenomenal. We're going to take this really good base mix. It's got all the vitamins and minerals. It's basically a complete diet. We just have to add the oil and the meat. So we're going to go buy our grass-fed organic beef. We're going to add that in the proportions it says to add it. Then we're going to get our Iceland pure fish oil or coconut oil or whatever fat we're using that day. Add that to it. Boom, you got a meal. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Very healthy. Not the cheapest way in the world to feed, although you have control over what you're spending on the meat portion of that, the protein portion. So when you're buying something like Honest Kitchen, they have base mixes. They have the Kindly and the Preference. And I used to use those for my cancer dogs before Paradigm came out. The only complaint I have with the Honest Kitchen is both base mixes have peas. So we've got that starchy carb in there. The Preference also has sweet potatoes. And sweet potatoes are not inherently bad. I'm just trying to get away from the carbs so much. But I used to feed a lot of Honest Kitchen to our dogs, and my original pup loaf recipe used the Honest Kitchen Preference, and then we just basically added meat and eggs and some organ meat and made it into a meatloaf, and that's how pup loaf started. The Honest Kitchen people hate that I did that because it's basically a freeze-dried raw food. They're like, you're cooking it, you're taking all the nutrition out of it. I'm like, yeah, okay. And it's still 1,000 times better than kibble that's been cooked at high heats 5 times over. So do we take a little bit of the nutrient value away every time we cook something? A little bit. So it just depends what we're doing. But they're veggies, so veggies can be processed a little bit. It's fine. So when you use their base mixes, you just add your own meat. And again, I would add my own oil. But it has all the vitamins and minerals, so you don't have to worry about balancing that meal. It makes life really simple. So if you're not a cook and you don't want to have to do all that stuff, you can, buy your own hamburger, you can feed it raw or you can cook it, I don't care. Mix it with the base mix. They also have complete diets that already have the freeze-dried meat or fish or whatever it is. And so they have turkey, they have fish, they have beef, they have duck. I don't think they have a crab. They got a lot of different ones. It's very easy to feed. Add water. So when you're traveling on the road, we're in the motorhome, whatever, that's easy. I'll take a box of that stuff. I add water. Done. Honest Kitchen is a pretty high quality product. I kinda like to get, their grain-frees have chickpeas. And again, not all grains are bad. I just like my dogs not to be on high-carb diets. So, you know, we could kind of play with it a little bit. We could say, well, I'm gonna up my protein part a little bit and decrease my, you know, base, or I can add more protein to it. I mean, you can play with those. So I would feed Honest Kitchen. They're a good company. They're getting big. I'm a little worried. We're watching them closely. They will be at AFCO. We're watching them. And so far, so good. Dr. Harvey's, those guys, they're really good. Answers, raw pet food, over the top good, expensive. They use fermented veggies. They're the ones that make the fermented raw goat milk and the fermented cow kefir and the fish stock, fermented fish stock. Two sisters, just, they're over the top crazy about sourcing and quality. So you're never gonna get a bad product from them, you're just gonna pay more for it. So I would feed their food in a heartbeat. They're coming out with a couple of new proteins. I think they're actually coming out with a rabbit. Pretty sure that's what she told me in our interview. Our dogs, for the most part, eat All Provide, which is made in Georgia. It's a raw, they only have 3 flavors. They have chicken or turkey or beef. I keep begging for more flavors, but they're crazy about their sourcing, and they have not found a duck source that they think is good enough. They have not found they're the ones that I said, you know, a rabbit has to come from Italy or France. So until they find sourcing that they think is good enough, they're not gonna go for it. I had an issue. I work very closely with All Provide. I do not work for them. I am not paid by them. My picture's on their packaging, but I do not work for them. I do not take money from them. I called them, or I sent an email a couple months ago, and I said, you know, my dogs seem to be having a little problem with your beef product. I think it's a little high in fat. We're getting some weird stools. My pancreatitis dogs aren't happy. What's going on? Did you change something? And they said, no, we haven't changed anything at all. So Michelle Allen, who runs Monkey's House, she uses a lot of the All Provide food, and she cooks a lot of it. Even though it has ground bone, it's ground small, so you can cook it. She cooks a lot, and she drains the fat off, because a lot of these old dogs can't handle the fat. But she saves the fat, because it's really high quality fat, so when you have a dog with kidney failure or cancer that you want the fat, she can add it back in. So she cooked some, and she drained it off, and then she sent me a picture of the cooked food and the amount of fat that came off it, and it was over the top, like way too much fat. I said, I think there's something going on. So I emailed Michael at All Provide, and I said, tell me what's going on. Something's changed. And he said, man, that picture is worth 20,000 words right there. He said, you're right, we do have something going on, and I gotta get to the bottom of it. So he went out to the supplier and said, did you change something in our beef supply? And the supplier had changed what they were supplying without telling the company. Now this happens all the time. So when Evinger's blamed it on the supplier, oh yeah, the supplier was partly to blame, but Evinger's wasn't on top of it either. So if you're feeding something and you see a change, call the company. Because somebody like the guys at All Provide, they did not sit on it. He was at that place that day, and he went nuts. And the change was made that day. And so all the food that had been made that was too high in fat was pulled. And that's what you want. That's the integrity that you want in a company. When they find that there's something that's not at the level they want it, it's out of there. So, you know, to me, if I can call up somebody and say, you need to make this change, there's another company we're working with, I don't work with them, but we've been selling the treatables with the CBD oil, the treats, and their treats had peanuts in them. And I said, peanuts are horrible for dogs. Why do you have peanuts in your treats? They just came out with all new treats and there's no peanuts in them. I'm an influencer, I can talk to them and tell them what I think, and they listen to it. There's a lot of reasons we don't want, peanuts are legumes, they're not nuts, they're legumes, and they're highly contaminated with aflatoxins. Don't feed peanut butter to your dogs. If you need something, use almond butter. Okay, so our dogs eat All Provide, Dr. Harvey's, Honest Kitchen. Occasionally, Freckles quit eating the frozen raw, she just said no. So we went to Primal freeze-dried, and she would eat that. So I will consider feeding Primal. Stella and Chewy's, like I said, I still use the rabbit. My cats eat the freeze-dried Stella and Chewy's because they only like chicken, whereas Primal puts fish in with their poultry. And and my cats say no.
Home cooking.
And we home cook. We make pavlov, we make stews, you know, whatever we need to change. And so even though, you know, the bowl, oh, and then we're using the Answers goat milk for everybody now. So even though their bowl might have those bases in them all the time, so it might be, okay, you're getting all provide, you're getting a little paradigm, you're getting your goat milk, and then you're getting added in whatever you need for your specific problem. So that's why there might be 5 or 6 different meals going to 7 dogs. So we're going to talk about vaccines, we're going to talk about chemicals, we're going to do it quickly. Before I do that, if I don't do this now, I'll forget. So you guys, it sucks that you're in Texas because we had to come on a plane. We couldn't drive here. So normally when we do these seminars, we bring cases of books and products and stuff with us. Couldn't do that. Couldn't get it on the plane. I guess I could have shipped it ahead of time, but that just seemed like total kill. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a code in my web store so that you guys will get a discount, so that you're not going to have to pay shipping for anything, so that you can order stuff without having to pay shipping, and my guys at home ship really fast, so you'll get stuff. So if you haven't read From Needles to Natural, this was my original book. It came out 3 years ago, almost to the day. And we were in Amarillo when we got the news that it was released. And it's really cool the first time you see like your book. It was like, oh. Now I'm like giving them away. So the first book, it started because the people at the Cavalier Brigade said, boy, you should write all this down somewhere. Okay, I did. Took me a while. So there are, like Stella and Chewy's I think is in here, I think Merrick is in here, and then Merrick's over period and they got crappy. So there are some things that are recommended in here as far, and I won't make that mistake again of putting brands in a book because they change. So some of the brand stuff in here might have changed, but you can find out whether I still like it by whether or not it's on my website. But the vaccine chapter, if you do a second book that has that, it'll probably be the exact same chapter. It hasn't changed. So there's information in here on diabetes, seizures, arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, Cushing's disease, hypothyroidism, you name it. You know, I tried to cover, you know, for the Cavalier people, the SM, the CM. Tried to cover all that in there. And so each chapter talks about what is done from a traditional standpoint, what the symptoms are, and what the normal treatments would be, and then what we can do from an alternative standpoint, whether that's with supplements or food or whatever. So that's what that one was. And then, people said, okay, well, that's great. You told us if we have a dog with liver problems or seizures, we should be adding dark leafy greens. Well, how much? How often? You guys weren't comfortable just throwing some in there. So we had to come up with a cookbook. So that's where What's for Dinner Dexter came from. So I wrote the first half of the book. And the first half of the book is all the stuff about yin and yang and blood tonics and chi tonics and resolving stagnation. I have some recipes in there for treating cancer, which I've changed since, everything's evolving. But this came out in 2015. There's about 60 recipes in there. All the recipes in the back half are Tanya Wilhelm's, and they're everything that she feeds Dexter. He's a Cavalier. She contacted me originally. She's in Ohio, and she's a dog trainer. Dexter had SM pretty severe, and he was taking all the normal pain meds for SM, and then she was adding on additional pain meds about 5 to 6 times a week. And now his pain meds are minimal, just from changing diet, getting inflammation out of there. So we can make a difference. And then when people started cooking for their dogs, and they started having cooking disasters, and they would cook 3 days for their dogs and cook nothing for themselves or their families, the kids are starving. They started sending us all these really, really funny stories and photos, and that's where this book came from. So there's recipes in here, but this one, if you need a good laugh, and laughter is the best medicine, this is for you. You will laugh. This one, Hugh and I wrote together. It started out with me, and people were sending me all these funny stories, and I decided to make them into a book. And I was sitting, at my end of the counter. Our desk is opposite sides, so I'm sitting on my side and I'm typing away, and I'm just cracking up laughing. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm putting this book together." What do you mean? I said, "These stories are hysterical." And he's like, "Well, I'll read some to him." So I started reading them to him. He's like, "Well, I want in on that." So then I actually made him write a story. His story is about the Feast of the Seven Fishes that we did on Christmas Eve for the dogs one year, because why not? I had to contact friends in Italy to say, what what do you put in that feast of the seven fishes? Okay, so, so these, are all on the website. I am gonna do some giveaways with these tonight. And then, if you're not familiar, you know, because there's never enough going on in my life, we designed a couple of supplements. One, this is the most popular, is our dental drops. So that whole fallacy about dried kibble is good for teeth, it's not. So the big thing that causes tartar in our dog's teeth is bacteria in the mouth and sugar, something for the bacteria to grab onto. So if I can get everybody to feed raw food, then this product will go out of business, but that's never gonna happen because there's too many kibble feeders in the world, so I'm gonna be a millionaire selling dental drops. But the dental drops have Manuka honey, hydrosol in it, which Manuka honey kills the bacteria that grow in the mouth better than chlorhexidine, which is the chemical that is in most of the dental chews and dental supplements. So we used Manuka honey, we used peppermint and cinnamon, which are great antibacterials. They also freshen the breath, look very nice. It's funny, I get a lot of people using these. It's not labeled for that, but it does work. Whether you want to share the same bottle with your dog, that's up to you. But it basically kills the bacteria that cause plaque. And if your dog already has some plaque, it will help that dissolve over time. Now, we've had an interesting phenomenon. Some types of plaque dissolve better than others. So we've been using this on our 7 dogs, and so Millie, who's our 16-year-old cocker, her teeth are pristine. They were crappy when I started doing this. Within about a month and a half, I'm like, man, you got puppy teeth. These are great. Meanwhile, then I've got Scout, who's the same age. I'm using the drops on him. I'm like, your teeth look like crap. I don't know why. His tartar is different, and it's not dissolving as well. His breath is fine because we're killing the bacteria, but it's not dissolving the tartar. So if you have a dog where it's not dissolving the tartar, then go get the dental done and then start from scratch, and we'll keep it from building up again. But it's been really popular and it's doing well. We've had it in this country for about a year, I guess, and been very effective. I've had a lot of people send me emails that, you know, they went to the vet 6 months ago and the vet said, oh, next time you're here, we're gonna, you know, sketch your dog for dental cleaning, and then they go back and go, well, what'd you do? His teeth are ugly. So, particularly if you have a dog who cannot undergo anesthesia and you're worried about that, do this, see how well it does. If they have rotten, loose black teeth, do not email me when it doesn't work. Fix them. They're painful. Okay. So that's
Is it dogs only?
No, dogs and cats.
Okay.
However, cats, they're jerks. Cats are not big fans of peppermint and cinnamon for the most part. And it's funny with the dogs, about 5% of them are like, why would you do that to me? But they get over it. Most of our dogs stand in line. Abby would drink the whole bottle.
They like it.
Yeah, so it just depends on the dog.
Drops on their tongue or something?
No, you put it here and here.
Oh, on their.
You just,
actually
you
on
shake
their-
the bottle, and it's got brown specks in it, they're normal. That's the deer antler velvet that's in there, which stimulates stem cells and heals gingivitis. So, you just shake it up, pull up a little bit in the dropper, and just lift the lip, couple drops there, couple drops there. That's it. I do it at bedtime. I just, you know, everybody's in bed, I walk around and we're done.
Just the top.
Yeah, you just put it there, and when it does, it mixes with the saliva, so it goes through the whole mouth. But you don't, this is one of those things, you don't want to do it right before they're going to eat and drink, because then it just gets washed away. So that's why I do it at bedtime. Everybody's ready for bed, time to brush your teeth, and then, yep, brush your teeth, and then it takes it all day. If you have a dog that will let you brush the teeth, use coconut oil. Don't use the toothpaste, just use good coconut oil on a soft brush. Works really well. All right, and then the other product that we came out with is our wellness formula, which has, these are made in New Zealand. It's got deer antler velvet, which is basically the fountain of youth. It's been used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years. Deer antler velvet is the new growth on the antlers, and it stimulates stem cells. So it stimulates new growth and regeneration of tissues. So it works really well for joint problems, works well for kidney problems. I mean, it'll regenerate any tissue. It has the green lip mussel, which is probably the best source of glucosamine and chondroitin, and it makes a tetra omega, which is the only organism in the world that makes that. So we have omega 3s and omega 6s. This is an omega 4. It's a tetra omega. The only organism that makes it. Probably the best source of joint good joint health that we can get. And then it has colostrum for the immune system and algae for circulation. So really good for heart dogs. We have put every dog at Monkey's House on that, and all of our dogs on it. The moment, actually, Hugh and I have started taking it now too. Now here's the thing, Hugh and I, because we have this product in our house, we take 2 a day, because for dogs under 25 pounds, it's 1 a day, and for dogs over 25 pounds, it's 2 a day, and I figure I'm a dog over 25 pounds. So we're taking 2. But my son, actually, from the same manufacturer, has just started a company that is strictly the deer antler velvet. So if you don't want all that other stuff that's in there, it's strictly deer antler velvet, and it's DAV.life. DAV.life. Really high quality product. His partner in business is a CrossFit junkie, so like really into bodybuilding and eats paleo and all that stuff, and stuff's made an amazing difference. So they're using it for recovery formula. And for
Would you give that started with puppies?
Yep, I would start this with puppies. Get their immune system off to a good start, support their joints from day 1. That's what it was originally made for. It's made as that's why it's called wellness formula. What we end up doing is we end up using it as a treatment formula, but we really should be, that's like your daily vitamin you should start on right off the get-go.
Okay.
It would help the puppies who are, they're getting stressed going through all those vaccines. Let's talk about vaccines.
You gonna give us the code?
Oh, which I haven't made the code yet, so please do not go home and order tonight, because I got to get it in the system, and then I have to warn my staff that on Monday you're going to make them crazy. Zoom. Z-O-O-M. Code is going to be Zoom. And what it's going to, so our shipping is normally $6, so I'm going to make it a $10 coupon. So when you put in Zoom, when you go to check out, it should just take $10 off your full order. So it may still charge you shipping. And I'll give you a little clue. If you order, it's a funny thing, our website doesn't tell you. If you order $80 worth of product, shipping is automatically free. But it doesn't tell you that. So if you order less than $80, it'll automatically add $6 of shipping. So that's why I'm giving you a $10 coupon, so you'll get your $6 back plus a little more. If you order $80 worth, when you go to check out, it'll give you 2 choices for shipping. It'll say shipping, flat rate $6, or free shipping. Check the box that says free shipping. Nobody does. They're making $200 and they're paying shipping. I'm like, they should have had free shipping. It gives you an option. Nobody ever checks the box.
That's crazy.
If you like, you can also work it so that people can order with us, and then we'll place one big order.
I don't care. You can do that. You do whatever you want. It would make my staff a lot happier if they could just ship a box.
Yeah, that might be easier for everybody.
Well, do you have a way to reach all these people?
Yes, if they stay in touch with us, yes. Yeah, we have
yeah, so people that don't live close by, then we'll work with people that are close. And these 2 products, actually, all of this is also, all these things are available on Amazon from me. The other things that are on my personal website, which is drjudymorgan.com. Everybody take one of those and pass around. I think there's like 106 products on my website. Like the Paradigm is on there. Paradigm you can only buy on my website and Dr. Harvey's website. I can't believe they trusted me to put it on my website. Anything that's on my website means I endorse it. If it's not on my website, who knows? But if it's on my website, I endorse it.
During the break, you had mentioned a book about the raw.
Oh, Karen Becker's book. Do you have it? You don't have it. Do you remember the name of it? It just
Karen
go to
spelled the
Amazon and
normal
put in
way?
Dr. Karen Becker.
Spelled the normal way?
Yeah. Yeah, normal Karen. K-A-R-E-N Becker. B-E-C-K-E-R. Hers is the best if you want to make your own homemade one. She's got good videos on it too. All right, so we're going to quickly talk about vaccines. I'm not going to have time to get through all the vaccines and the chemicals. For chemicals, let me just say, you're in Texas. Everybody worries about fleas and ticks and heartworms. We should worry about heartworms because you are in the heartworm belt. You probably need to be giving heartworm medication all year round. Heartworms can only be spread when the temperature stays above 57 degrees around the clock for 2 weeks straight. Now, do you get cold periods in the winter where it drops below that for extended periods?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
I live in San Antonio.
Yeah, well, San Antonio, I'm thinking that you're kind of screwed. You're on it all year round. So in New Jersey, we haven't started our heartworm preventative yet because the temperature kept dropping overnight. So the mosquitoes, the heartworms are spread by mosquitoes. So the mosquito bites the heartworm positive dog, sucks up the little babies that are swimming in the bloodstream. The babies go into the salivary glands of the mosquito. They sit there for 2 weeks and go through a couple of maturing processes. And then the mosquito bites the next dog and injects them into that dog. And then it has to mature and molt and migrate. And it takes 6 to 9 months from the time the dog is bitten to the time it actually develops heartworms. So if you adopt a 13-year-old dog that's heartworm negative, think twice about whether you even want to use heartworm preventative, because they're probably may not live long enough to have the heartworms even be a problem. It takes 2 years for them to actually be a problem. So, but in New Jersey, because the temperature keeps getting cold, it keeps interrupting that mature process in the salivary glands. So that means I don't have to give heartworm preventative. I used to have big nerds.
Creepy man voice.
So funny. So we really only have to worry about it when the temperature stays hot. So if in, say, December, January, February, it got cold enough for a 3-month period, you could stop for a few months. But you do need to do the heartworm test before you start up again.
Is there a particular one that you recommend?
I like Interceptor the best. Interceptor. I do not, because I like the active ingredient in that, which is milbemycin. That is the same active ingredient that is in Trifexis. But Trifexis puts a flea preventative in there as well. Dogs are dying on Trifexis. They do not recommend it. If you need to get, and the flea chemical that's in there is spinosad, which is Comfortis. If you absolutely must give an oral chemical for fleas, Comfortis is probably the one I would say, but give it separate from your heartworm. So give one on the 1st and one on the 15th. Where we live, I give the heartworm every 45 to 60 days. I get a little more nervous recommending that down here in heartworm territory, particularly in San Antonio. So I probably stick with
No, we have mosquitoes in the winter time.
I probably stick with it, yeah, but they can't transmit the heartworms if the temperature drops.
Oh.
So, but you, I mean, I would have no problem with keeping the dogs on Interceptor all year round here. It's very different here. You know, when I was up in Canada, you'll love this, in Nova Scotia a few weeks ago, and there was a veterinarian in the audience, a very traditional veterinarian, and he happened to have treated Charlie, our dog who was trying to die the night before, so I had to be nice. But I said to him, look, you know, I don't know whether to talk about heartworms or not. Do you have heartworms here in Nova Scotia? And he said, no, we don't, because it's too cold. And I said, okay, so that means I don't have to talk about heartworm meds because you don't use them here. And he goes, well, I said, well, what?
Oh.
He said, oh, well, we do have people give them every month to prevent intestinal parasites. Okay, well then he had to leave to go to work, and I was very happy. And I went, okay, now we can tell the truth. Like, what a bogus bunch of bull. So, do not automatically deworm your dogs. Twice a year, take a stool sample in. Check for parasites. If it's positive, give them something. If it's negative, don't give them something. If it's chronically positive, let's get rid of whatever's causing it. First, we gotta fix his immune system. And then I would start the dog, if I had a dog, first of all, Interceptor will take care of whipworms, roundworms, and hookworms. So you got pretty good coverage right there. There is now the Interceptor Plus, don't fall for that one. That's got a tapeworm dewormer in it. Well, who the heck needs to worm for tapeworms every month? As long as you don't have tapeworms, unless you have a big flea problem, you don't have a tapeworm problem. So we don't need that. It's a sales pitch. So go for the straight Interceptor. Don't have anything added into it. Check your stool samples. If you have a dog who has chronic parasites, first of all, make sure that you've checked everybody in the household, because you may have one who's the problem. So we get this, you know, I've treated this dog 6 times for hookworms. How come he's not clearing up? Then I find out they have another dog at home that we've never tested. Huh. Wonder who might be keeping that going. So check for parasites, because Giardia is not going to be prevented by the Interceptor. Tapeworms are not going to be prevented by that, but you shouldn't have tapeworms very often. Coccidia is not prevented by that. So there are other parasites that we can get. Check stool samples. If you have a dog who's chronically infected, feed diatomaceous earth.
Yeah.
Food grade diatomaceous earth. Add it to their meals every single day, it'll take care of the parasites.
But some vets here locally say it doesn't, that's
It-
just it's just a marketing thing that doesn't work.
Yeah, they're full of crap. It works. It works. And feed a good, high quality diet, fix the immune system.
You're saying-
Coccidia, what happened, what do you,
Coccidia, we use Alban, which is a sulfa drug, but, you know, we should need it for about 6 days and then it should be cleared. And if it's not cleared, we gotta fix something else.
okay, like what, that, I mean.
Fix the
like-
immune system. If you
Oh.
have chronic coccidia, first of all, make sure you're checking everybody in the household. And make sure that it's a parasitic coccidia. So if you have a dog who eats rabbit poop all the time,
I
they
like
may
chicken
come
poop.
up, or bird poop, they may come up positive for
So that's
coccidia,
where-
but it's not parasitic to the dog. It's
Oh.
just in the poop.
What about chicken poop?
If it's got coccidia, that's not parasitic to your dog.
It's okay.
Really?
Yeah.
So,
So make
you
sure.
don't have to do anything then?
Well, get
because she does eat
a
rabbit
copy of the
food.
lab work, and the lab work will say right on there, this is parasitic or not parasitic to dogs.
Oh,
Depends on the species. Yeah, we overtreat all the time.
well, I just sprayed my yard too with something the breeder recommended. It's what restaurants and hospitals use.
Okay, well, diatomaceous earth works really well in your yard too.
Yes, it
You
does.
just have to reapply it after it rains.
Right, but I just put that in her food.
Yeah, so I would use it.
What about a flea and tick preventative?
I have a question on the weight limits on the heartworm medicine. Like
Oh,
if you have
yeah.
one on the edge, like. I
So
have-
your veterinarian is, if your dog's 51 pounds, they're gonna go, yeah, 51 to 100. Our 30-pound dogs get the 10-pound size.
Oh, really?
High low dose.
This is-
So here's the thing with milbemycin. It was originally, and this is in the book, it was originally tested at 1/5 the dose of what's actually in the pill. And it was found to be 100% safe and effective at 1/5 the dose. So a 50-pound dog would take it originally was gonna be marketed in under 50 pounds and over 50 pounds. And so the size for under 50 pounds is what is now the 2 to 10 pound size. And the over 50 was the 11 to 25 pound size. But HeartGuard knew that this was coming out, so HeartGuard said, oh, we're gonna add parental to the ivermectin, and now we can put hookworms, hookworms and roundworms on our label, we're gonna prevent those too, because they're deworming your dog every single month. Well, the Interceptor people said, well, we'll fix you, we'll multiply our dose of milbemycin by 5, and now we can put whipworms on there too. We would.
Is that dosing in the PI?
So that dosing is totally off-label. Good luck getting your veterinarian to sell you the low dose. I do in my practice. It says right on their chart, it says Safe Heart Protocol. So it's an FDA study. It's from like 1997, 1998. If you Google FDA Safe Heart, you'll find the testing. So our dogs all get the 10-pound size because that's the smallest it comes in, and our dogs are all under 30 pounds.
What about a small dog?
So a dog that's under 10 pounds, you're kind of stuck, you're given the pill up to 10 pounds. You could break it in half. It's up to you.
So you can only get that interceptor from your vet?
Yes. Heartworm medications are prescription because if you have a heartworm positive dog and you give them heartworm preventative, they can go into anaphylactic shock because it'll kill off the baby. So, so that is a problem. I mean, if you're in my practice and you're one of my patients, I do low dose. There are a few other holistic vets that do it. You can talk to your vet, you can take them to study, you can show it to them. They may or may not work with you on that.
Now, with an old dog, I have his, he's 75-pound dog, so I've got the, can I just put that, yeah, because that's what I want to do, and then I got,
Yeah, I'm not as comfortable with it with HeartGuard. That's ivermectin.
I do Interceptor.
Yeah, me personally, I do. But I'm just saying what I personally do. I cannot tell you what to do with your dog. I'm just CYA right here.
You're not comfortable.
I personally give my dogs low dose of Interceptor. So, and if you have a dog who has chronic whipworms, the best way to get rid of them is to use Interceptor every month at that dose. It's very hard to get them out of the soil.
So you don't use Interceptor every month?
We haven't given it yet this year. Our dogs, and I use low dose every 6 weeks in New Jersey. So if I get around to giving it this year, they might get 2 or 3 pills. I think last year they had
What was the
3.
temperature you said?
57.
Okay.
And so
And it's
no
2 weeks.
All right.
I don't like HeartGuard as much. Because
Okay,
they add
'cause my
stuff.
pup is on HeartGuard, but they're ready to go in.
Yes, if your
This
vet doesn't
month
carry,
is
if your
switched to
vet
something
says,
else.
if your vet says I only have HeartGuard, ask them to write a prescription, do it by mail
What
or.
about Sentinel?
So Sentinel's okay, that's basically Interceptor with lufeneron. So the way lufeneron works is it keeps flea eggs from hatching. So it keeps you from getting a huge flea infestation. If you don't have any problem at all with fleas, then you don't need it, just go back to Interceptor. Don't fall for the Sentinel Spectrum, that has the tapeworm dewormer in it. We don't need it. I think that's an oxymoron. Here, we're giving you this pill that'll prevent your dog from getting fleas, which means that if he doesn't have fleas, he won't get tapeworms, but we're gonna tapeworm deworm him every month.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
craziness. Do not use Bravecto, NexGard, Simparica. Killing dogs, killing dogs, killing dogs. I cannot say this enough.
How long is it?
Bravecto, NexGard. These are the new, and Simparica is the other one. And there's another one coming out, and I can't even remember the name of it, it's brand new. These are a group of drugs called isoxazolines. They were originally developed as a chemical to use as a crop pesticide. The big problem with them, they were too toxic to the environment to use as a crop pesticide.
It's safe and it's been tested in there.
So let's give it to dogs.
They must be getting kickback on it.
How long does it take to get out of the dog system? My husband took him to the vet, and guess what kennel has in her system?
Which one?
Bravecto.
Oh my God.
Well, I just bought me 5 of them.
So Bravecto, these are for fleas and ticks, for prevention of fleas and ticks. NexGard is labeled for 1 month. Simparica is labeled for 1 month. You never hear about Simparica because they just haven't sold very much. They were the 3rd one to the market, so you're last in line. So NexGard is 1 month. Bravecto lasts 3 months. And it's not that it's more of the chemical, it's a tweak to the chemical. NexGard, we had a dog here earlier today, you guys. Their dog was given NexGard for Demodex. So it broke with Demodex from stress and immune system stress. It'll, fix the immune system, the Demodex will take care of itself, not a problem. But the dog was given NexGard to clear it up. So 2 days after the NexGard is given, the dog has blisters popping out on the body. Then you touch them and they pop and they ooze. So we're 4 days after and the dog is still making blisters. It's in there for a month. That is the most common side effect to NexGard. Oh yeah, that and seizures. So now we've got dogs with
Now
oozing
she's
sores.
never gonna sleep.
Now we've got dogs with oozing sores and having seizures. And it's contraindicated to be dispensed to dogs with seizures. I got records on a dog right next to where they dispense the Phenobarb. On the next line, they dispense the NexGard. They sent the people home out of the office with both things in their hands at the same time. They're contraindicated. Guess what caused the seizures in the dog? The NexGard. We got rid of the NexGard, we got rid of the Phenobarb. This is the crap that happens because nobody pays attention. So Bravecto lasts for 3 months. Side effects of Bravecto besides dying, liver failure, kidney failure, cancer, seizures, skin disease, bright red, sores, oozing. There's nothing good about this drug. And it's been tested, it's there a year later. It doesn't go away. It goes down, but it doesn't go away. They have dogs that they've given 1 Bravecto tablet. You shake a bottle of fleas onto those dogs, the fleas die. It's still there a year later. This is bad stuff. And it's extremely toxic to, the reason they couldn't use it is extremely toxic to fish. So when your dog poops, don't poop near your fish pond, you're gonna kill them. Because when the rain washes that metabolite into the water, it kills the fish. And that's why they couldn't use it on crops. Now, I don't know who sits at these drug companies and says, hey, that's really toxic stuff, I think we should give it to dogs.
Yeah.
They're probably sitting next to the guys from Korea.
Yeah.
So that's, yes, that's my big thing on those.
You said HeartGuard was okay though?
I like Interceptor better than HeartGuard. HeartGuard's not horrible, I like Interceptor better. HeartGuard makes those big chewy nuggets, so they've got all kinds of dyes and sugars and stuff in it, and it's not a lot, you're giving it once a month and it's one nugget, but I like it. Oh, ProHeart, run, kills dogs, run fast. ProHeart, when it came out, so everybody was, it's funny, I was on some of the initial survey panels of veterinarians about what if we could come out with a 6-month heartworm injection? Wouldn't that be good? Now, first of all, at this point, I was still in my very, very traditional, and they paid me $200 to go sit on this panel, so I'll answer their questions. I didn't know any better. I was like, oh, that'd be great. They didn't tell us what the chemical was going to be. They didn't tell us anything. They just said, hey, it'll be an injection. We'll give it the last 6 months. And I was like, oh, that'd be great. No, it's not. It came out, ProHeart, and then it killed a bunch of dogs, and then it got pulled off the market. And then, suddenly, 3 or 4 years later, it's back. They didn't make any changes to the formulation. They changed the label on the box. FDA said, well, if you just put a warning on the label, it'll be fine. Now,
So
how
that
many
is
of
on the
you-
PI? That is on the PI then? That it's causing?
Oh, well, what they say on the box, same thing they say on the vaccine, is to be given to healthy dogs. So how many senior dogs with some chronic disease, allergies, liver problems, you know, do you test every dog with a complete blood panel to make sure that their liver and their kidneys are working perfectly before you inject the ProHeart? Oh, no. And how many of you have had your dog injected with ProHeart and have ever seen the label?
Right.
Have you ever seen the label? Have they ever shown you the label that says, here's the warning? Exactly, they don't give you that. So you don't know what the dangers are of this. And for a while, when it first came back, owners had to sign a release that said, I know that this drug is, how many vets do you think had people sign the releases for that drug?
No.
Yeah, bug kiss. It's bad. So it is moxidectin. I do not like moxidectin in dogs. It causes seizures, it causes neurologic problems. There are topicals with Advantage Multi, I believe, has the moxidectin in it. No way, moxidectin is bad.
Activil's a topical.
So what do you use for fleas and ticks since it's so bad here?
Okay, so you guys have more trouble here than we do. I get it. So like I said, if I had to use an oral drug, I'd probably go Comfortis, but I would not give it near my heartburn preventative, so I, do it at, the 1st and the 15th or whatever. Personally, we use essential oils.
Yeah.
So, and I've got a really good blog on my website. If you just Google just search under the blogs, it's called Natural Flea and Tick Prevention. Actually, if you Google Dr. Judy Morgan Natural Flea and Tick Prevention, that blog comes up. So in your yard, if you have a smallish yard, you can use beneficial nematodes. You can use diatomaceous earth. Cedarside and Wonderside I think Wonderside is actually here in Texas. Wonderful companies. You can order from them. They're cedar oil, so you have to like the smell of cedar.
Good.
The good news is fleas and ticks hate it. They actually have a product you can hook on your hose and spray your yard. They have products you can spray in your house, you can spray your dogs, you can spray their beds, you can spray yourself. When Hugh and I go to the Caribbean and they talk about Zika virus and chikungunya and all those things, we take the dog's essential oils with us, and that's what we use.
Cedar oil is great.
So there are a lot of different essential oils on the market that are used for fleas and ticks. There's 2 on my website, Vetra Repel and Kin and Kind. When you're using essential oils, which one do you like the smell of? Which one can you stand? If you can't stand it, don't use it. If you hate cedar, don't use cedar side. Rose geranium is the safest essential oil. That's the only one that you can use full strength. 1 dot between the shoulder blades, 1 dot over the butt. Don't worry about spreading it through. It spreads by hair-to-hair contact. That's how oils work. And it works very well. When you're using essential oils or diatomaceous, you can put diatomaceous earth on your pet. That'll work very well as well, but they're pretty dry and flaky and they feel crusty when you pet them. Then they need sand in your bed. But it works well in your yard. When you use these products on your pets, you have to apply them more often. It's not a one and done. It's not a once a month. It's going to take a little more work. But to me, it's worth the work. Now, I had a client who took her dog to the Pointer National Specialty in Ohio. I went with her, and they had to do their field trial out in the fields. Now, the pointers are great because they're short-coated and you can see the ticks. So she took the essential oil spray, sprayed herself, sprayed her dog. 100 dogs go out in the field. At the end of the day, everybody comes in, and if we polled them, there's probably 100 different products, so all those are some are on Frontline, and some are on Advantix, and some are, pick one. And the only one who came in without any ticks was my client. She used essential oil spray. So, and that's, we were in Gettysburg camping, big signs all over the place, stay on the paths, tuck in your socks, use your deep repellent, blah, blah, blah. Well, we didn't do any of that, but we had essential oil spray. We spritzed the 4 dogs, spritzed us, and we merrily walked off the trails through the grass and came home with no ticks.
But then essential oil spray work for mosquitoes also. Say kids are out in the yard, I can spray the kids with that.
Mosquitoes, gnats, you betcha. So,
you said
where's
on your
your
website.
This rose geranium is for all of them.
What?
The rose geranium, is it for all of them?
Yeah, it'll do all that as well. So, so it's another layer of protection against heartworms as well, because it keeps the mosquitoes away. Another thing that fleas absolutely hate, not sure if it's quite as effective on ticks, fleas hate coconut. They hate the lauric acid in coconut. So if you use the high lauric acid coconut products like the cocoa therapy, you can use it on the coat and you can feed it to them. So in the Philippines, countries over that direction, everybody uses a lot of coconut oil. These aren't a problem. They don't like it. The lauric acid, if it's high enough content, will kill them. So, you know, there's so many different layers of defense that you can add on. It's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna feed them coconut oil. I'm gonna feed them some fresh garlic, which by the way is not toxic to your dogs. You can get away with about a clove for 25 pounds of body weight per day. Fresh crushed.
Everything I read says it's.
I know. It is a phenomenal addition. It's cancer fighting. It fights bacteria, it fights yeast, and it fights parasites. There's a great product called Bug Off Garlic from Springtime. It's a tablet. And it's basically garlic. I might have brewer's yeast in it. Works great.
It smells wonderful.
Yeah. So, you know, there's so many different layers that you can put on, and if you're not getting enough effect with one, add another. And here's the other thing. If your dog has an immune system that's struggling, or your cat, gonna have more parasites. When they're healthy, they don't have a parasite problem. We don't have a parasite problem in our house. We never have. Our dogs are exposed all the time. We don't have a parasite problem. And if we go somewhere and everybody else has fleas, they just don't come home with us. I don't like my dogs. So you want to keep their immune system happy and healthy, and that is going to keep your parasite loads much lower. So if you look, you know, a lot of people that have cats have more than one cat, and so there's always going to be, I have clients who have 60 cats. So, but there's always going to be those couple of cats that are what we call the woman with 60 cats actually is the cleanest house, cleanest cats. She's like a fanatic. She does a lot of rescue. Amazing. But she spends literally all day taking care of cats and cat boxes and grooming them. But when you look at particularly a bunch of cats, same with with dogs, but we see it really in cats. And so you'll have the young, healthy kittens that are just, you know, all over the place. And then you get what we call the dinosaurs. Those are those old cats that are all creaky and skinny and, you know, they've been in kidney failure for years and, you know, they're just a rack of bones with some hair. Their hair is all clumpy looking. If you get fleas in that house, your young cats will be like, oh yeah, I saw a flea. That old dinosaur, they're gonna have 4,000 on them. They'll lick them dry. They'll drink them dry. So the ones who are struggling and don't have good immunity, they're the ones that get attacked. They're parasites. Parasites prey on the weak.
So what do you give them? What would you recommend for them? Just the oil spray?
For the kitty cats? Yeah, so we can use essential oil spray on the kitties, but you have to make sure that it's labeled for use in cats because there are some things that cats are much more sensitive to. Like the Kin and Kind that's on my website has clove and neem, which shouldn't be used on cats, so that one's only labeled for dogs. The Venture Repel has cinnamon, lemongrass, and something else, and that one's labeled for cats. So again, it's what you like the smell of.
Is it safe for puppies?
Yeah, they should be safe for puppies. You know, it'll say on there if they're a certain age, but I haven't had a problem with them. And then the cedar oil products work really well. All right, we got about 3 minutes to talk about vaccines. Yes?
I was just gonna ask you your thoughts on like Bordertown and Lexington,
Yeah,
some of the
okay.
other things.
So I'm gonna give you a quick rundown. I have a handout and then it's also in the book. For vaccines, less is more. The fewer vaccines you give, the better protected your pet's gonna be. Again, keep the immune system happy and healthy. So every time we give a vaccine, it stresses the immune system. You don't get instant immunity. You don't give a shot and go, oh look, he's immune to rabies. Nope. It takes his body about 10 to 14 days to actually build antibodies and make an immunity to that. So I get crazy when, you know, somebody will say, well, I'm taking my dog to the boarding kennel tomorrow, so I need, you know, they want DHLPP, Bordetella, blah, blah, you know, I have to have all this today. Well, great. You're gonna do a darn thing for boarding tomorrow. But the boarding kennels are stupid enough to not care. They want to see that they had it. They don't care that it was yesterday. Dogs don't care. The other thing that works in our favor, though, is that that dog probably had a vaccine somewhere else in his life. And oh, by the way, it was good for a lifetime, so he's okay anyway. Not gonna get anything. So what the drug companies and the vaccine companies and your veterinarians do not want you to know is that distemper and parvo are pretty close to lifelong vaccines. So I had a little discussion with the Mariel people the other day. Thanks to Debbie.
Yeah.
Those of you who don't follow my Facebook Live, I do one every morning on Judy Morgan D.V.M. on Facebook. It's called Breakfast with Spaniels. And all the videos, we've been doing them since before Christmas, every single day. Monday through Friday, they're at 8 a.m. Eastern, so 7 for you guys. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we're an hour later. So we've been doing them from the hotel. And so we used Debbie's vet records the other day for one of these talks. So I had this conversation with the Mariel rep, and she said, well, if you do the full series of puppy vaccines and then give the adult booster a year later, and your dog gets sick with distemper or parvo anytime in its lifetime, we'll cover that for you. Because they know they're immune for life.
After 2 sets.
Right, and I said, well, why do, I said, okay, well, here's what I do in my practice. I do the puppy shots, and by the way, I do 2, not 4 or 6 or 7. I had a puppy that came in the other day, a series of 7. I was like, all right, well, he's trash for life. Just, get out your checkbook now, because you're gonna pay me to fix the allergies and immune system problems for the rest of his life. Trash him. So, I do a series of 2. And then I come back and I do a titer. So when they come back a year later, when they're due for that booster, I do a titer. So a titer is a blood test that says the dog has or cat has antibodies or it doesn't. If it has antibodies, we test distemper and parvo only because we know that hepatitis, the adenovirus, the A part of the vaccine, or the H part, that's good for life. We already know that. So we don't bother. And by the way, we never see it, so who cares? So we titer for distemper and parvo. And if they come back, so they're 15 months old, they finished their first puppy shots when they were like 3-4 months old, whatever. They're coming back a year later, we titer them, and it comes back and says, oh look, he's got antibodies to distemper and parvo. Isn't that good? He's protected. He made immunity. So we're good for life.
And the cost for that in your area?
What?
The cost for that?
Yeah.
The cost for a titer in my clinic is $83.
About 200.
They
Yeah.
told me 400.
Yeah,
And
so
I'm like,
here's the answer to that. Gene Dodd's lab, hemopet.org.
Wonderful website.
Hemopet.org, HEMOPET.org. It's Gene Dodd's lab. You can also use Kansas State University lab. They charge like $40. Now here's the bad news, you gotta go to your vet and get them to draw the blood and send it. Now, what I say to that is, hey, I'm already here, I've already paid for the office visit and exam. Charge me a fee for drawing the blood and spinning it. So, great, what are they gonna charge you for that, 10, 15, 20 bucks?
No.
yeah.
Well, you got your office visit, but then how much are they gonna charge to draw the blood and spin
$100
it?
plus.
Easy.
And then you take your blood and you put it in the mail.
So you don't have to keep it on ice or anything.
Depends, they'll tell you what you need to do with it. But all you need to do is get that sample. All the directions are on Gene's website. So when your vet says it's $400 to do that, you can take Gene Dodd's price sheet in with you. And you can say, well, I'd like to have it sent here, please, because it's $40 or $60 or whatever it is. I'd like to have it sent here, would you send it here? See what they say to that.
Yeah, I think
Now they're going to have a comeback.
They say they
They're trying to discourage you.
Yeah.
So it's like I was talking to them earlier, I had this client coming down from New York that I really don't want to see, so I said to my office manager, give her a really high price, because she's crazy. And she said, okay. So she's coming, but I'm gonna get well paid for being made crazy. So, there's the crazy person fee. When their first word out of their mouth is, no veterinarians ever did anything good for me in my entire life. I don't even know why I'm talking to you. Oh, come in. We'll have an argument. It'll be fine. So, I have no problem. So here's what happened with Debbie. For those of you who don't know the story, she wanted to do a consultation today. So I said, fine, send me your records. She sends me her records, and I'm going through it. I'm highlighting things, and one of the things I highlight is the vaccines because I need to. And her dog has horrible immune system problems, chronic infections. And so I'm like, 1 year rabies vaccine. 1 year rabies vaccine. 1 year the dog's 4 years old. I'm like, why does this dog keep getting? So I sent her a message. I'm like, why does your dog get vaccinated for rabies every year? It's not even that 3 anyway. No, it was IMRAB 1 they were using. But it didn't say that in the record, so I didn't know. So I said, why does your dog get rabies vaccine every year? By the way, rabies is probably lifelong as well, but there's laws about that, so we kind of are stuck with it 3 years. I said, why is your dog getting that? She goes, well, she's a therapy dog, so I'm thinking maybe Therapy Dog International wants it every year. So I looked that up. I said, nope, they just want, whatever state law is. She goes, okay, well, it must be Texas state law. Looked that up, and I said, nope, they say 3 years. She goes, okay, well, I called the vet, and he said it's Bedford City law. I looked up Bedford City law. It says whatever Texas says. I said, well, because Texas says every 3 years. I said, so go tell them that Bedford says 3 years is good. See what their answer is now. Now, I can just imagine the vet or the people on the other end of the phone as she's making them crazy. And I'm starting to laugh my ass off at this point because I'm just like, really? Safety and efficacy issues. I went, I'm pretty sure that the FDA has said that the IMRAB 3 is good for 3 years, and we could use the IMRAB 3 on an adult dog. So my next phone call was to Marielle. I said, what's the difference between IMRAB 1 and IMRAB 3? She's the label. She didn't answer that directly. It took 45 minutes to get to there.
So what about the big influenza that's in Texas now?
Influenza. All right, so rehash. Rabies every 3 years, folks. Three. The first one is good for 1 year, no matter when they have it. And it has to be after 12 weeks of age.
Yes.
The first one's good for 1 year. Any vaccine, I don't care if that vaccine lapses. I don't care if you got the 1 year and you don't go back for 3 more years. You don't have to start over. Whenever you get one, it's a 3 year at that point. This is nationally stated. It's in the state laws. It's the way it is. It's the way it's labeled. My husband is the state, or my ex-husband, sorry you, my ex-husband is the veterinarian and head of the Department of Health in New Jersey. So he's the rabies man. So I know of what I speak on the rabies thing, because anytime I have a question about this, I'm like, so that whole thing about, you have to start over if you missed, like if you're behind, because some vets will do that to you. Oh, you're a week overdue for your 3 years, we got to start over.
That happens to us the day before.
Yeah, we have some vets in Houston, it has to be there the day before.
Yeah, bull, call them on it. It is
No,
bull.
we don't vaccinate anymore.
Yeah, call them on it. So, it's 3 years, so that's rabies. But be well aware that it's probably lasting 5, 7, 9, or 10 years. So if you don't license and you don't care about the law, you only care about your dog. One, you can have a rabies titer done at Gene's Lab or at Kansas. Or you can say, well, I don't license, I don't care. I'm not answering to anybody. My dog had a rabies vaccine. I'm pretty sure we're good. It's up to you. Ours got a vaccine a few years ago because there was a rabid fox in our neighborhood and we were worried, so we vaccinated everybody. Our cats go outside and they keep catching bats, so I'm gonna keep doing that. All right, so distemper parvo, get your puppy series. We're gonna get to that. Distemper parvo, get your puppies, probably 2. The later you start your puppies, the better. Would prefer not to give them anything until about 12 weeks. If I had my choice, I would do 12 and 16. Or 14 and 18. Wait as long as you can.
Even if they're boarding?
They're gonna require it.
Boarding puppies? Don't board puppies.
But I get a lot of people who ask me, and they're fussing if we can't board them, so that's why I'm asking.
Don't board puppies.
Yeah.
Their immune system is
I don't
immature.
board, but they ask a lot.
Although they might get some natural immunity there, so you might be helping them out. But the later you start them, the better immunity they get from the vaccine. So you want to start them pretty late. Now the problem is, you go buy a puppy and the breeder is already very nicely vaccinated and it's 6, 8, 10, and 12 weeks for you. And I try to give individual vaccines. So I will give the distemper by itself.
Right.
And then I will give parvo by itself. Most vet clinics don't have only distemper, and they have a combo vaccine. That's all they got. But beg of them. I want my distemper. 2 weeks later, I'm going to come back and get parvo. 2 weeks later, I'll come back and get the second distemper, and then 2 weeks after that, I'll come back and I'll get the other parvo. Rabies, I try to wait till 6 to 12 months. Lepto, I won't use in a dog under 10 pounds because they react. Now, somebody said their dog got lepto. Yeah, because it's because it's not protected. So In lepto, we are seeing an increase. I hate the vaccine. It is the most reactive vaccine. I don't use the vaccine much at all.
My breeder said no.
Yeah, I would
The
say,
vet says yes, and
I will
I'm
not
going,
vaccinate
no.
my dogs for it. There are 7 strains of lepto. The vaccine, they finally got on board. It used to cover 2, now it covers 4, but there's still 3 that it doesn't cover. I don't like lepto vaccine.
What is lepto?
Lepto is a spirochete, so it's not really a bacteria and it's not really a virus. It's somewhere in between. It's closer to a bacteria. So when we vaccinate for viruses like distemper, parvo, and rabies, because it's a virus, that vaccine lasts a really long time. The vaccines for, and this is why we don't have vaccines for bacterial things, they're not as effective and they don't last as long. So the lepto vaccine, and this was an interesting thing I got out of the Marielle conversation. We've always been told that the lepto vaccine only lasts 9 to 12 months. She told me it lasts 2 years. Not labeled for that.
But isn't leptobacteria, my understanding it was from dirty areas.
Yeah, so
stray
lepto,
dogs and all that.
lepto lives
so-
in stagnant water. So it's in puddles, and it is spread through the urine of rats, raccoons, foxes, skunks, and there's different strains of it depending on which animal is spreading. It's also found in dairy cattle. So if you're downstream from a dairy farm. It is something that you can catch. It is also treatable. So her dog was treated and did well. You have to catch it. Now, I'm going to question a little bit because they didn't get the strain on hers. So did they, what was their testing on that? Was it an in-house snap test? Was it something they sent to the lab? And why don't we have the strain? Like, they should have the strain.
Maybe because I didn't know to ask.
Ask.
So
Ask and find out if it is even, one, because her vet said to her, we think maybe it's a new strain. We're seeing something that's a little different, and the dog got over it very quickly. So I would like to know, is it one of the strains that's even in the vaccine? Because that's going to make a big difference as well. We are seeing an increase in lepto in the cities with the city dogs because of the rats. So, it used to be that I would say, well, why would you vaccinate a city dog? Rat urine, big problem. We actually had an outbreak in Jersey City, Hoboken, somewhere up there. But an outbreak was 6 dogs. But of course, everybody within a 200-mile radius, the vets went, "Ooh, we all have to vaccinate for lepto."
Titers work?
Titers don't work for lepto, don't bother. Don't bother.
It's not a virus.
So, because it doesn't last that long. So for the titers, it's really distemper and parvo, and you can titer rabies if you just want to know. But the township or the state, nobody's ever going to take that. Bordetella and kennel cough vaccine, I don't recommend it. It's not life-threatening. Who cares? If your dog, it vaccinates for 3 to 4 of the upper respiratory diseases, of which there are about 60, and it's not life-threatening. And, oh, by the way, when you give your dog that vaccine, now your dog is shedding all of that and infecting everybody around him. So those dogs that get their Bordetella vaccine, the kennel cough vaccine the day before they go to the kennel, is now shedding it all over your dog. So your dog comes home from the kennel with kennel cough, from half the time from the dogs that came in that just got the vaccine that are shedding it all. So, not a fan of that. Influenza. Influenza right now is a big scare tactic. And there's 2 vaccines, because there's 2 strains, actually there's 3 vaccines. There's 2 strains of influenza. There was the Korean dog flu one, and then the one that came from the greyhounds down in Florida. The greyhound was the first one, then the Korean one came in, and that's the one that started up in Chicago. And I'm not even sure which one is going around right now. So they made a vaccine for the first one, then they made a vaccine for the second one, and then, oh, God bless them, they made a combo vaccine. Now here's the thing, if we used a combo vaccine and gave humans a vaccine that contained every flu strain that has ever come down the pike, can you imagine what would be put in your body? So, but this is their plan for the dogs. For every flu strain that comes out, we're just going to blonk it all into one vaccine. Here, have 75 different things at the same time. And the influenza, the difference between that and kennel cough is if you get a dog with flu, they can die. The dogs that are going to die, for the most part, are the very young whose immune system isn't working, the very old whose immune system isn't working, or those who are sick with something else and their immune system isn't working. Those are the dogs most likely to die. Now, this latest thing started because there was a judge at a dog show in Georgia who checked the bites on every single dog and went down the line and spread it from one dog to the next, and then those dogs all went home. And then they spread. Because the dogs don't show symptoms for up to 21 days.
What are the symptoms of flu?
Same as they are in people.
Oh, really?
So they get fever, aches and pains, and then they get pneumonia. So those are the dogs that die. I've only seen 2 dogs with flu since I've been in practice. Puppy store, pet store puppies that were bought that, had way too many vaccines, too young, and were immune compromised, living in bad situations, puppy mill type deal. They get fevers 105 to 107, and it is a viral pneumonia. So all you've got is supportive care. That's what you got. And then they all get thrown on antibiotics for the secondary invaders, but it doesn't do anything for the virus. So either they'll be strong enough to fight it off and they'll live, or they won't. A very, very, very small percentage of dogs get sick. If your dog is the one that dies, it sucks. That's 100% for you. But overall, it's very low. I'm not running out to buy flu vaccine. I'm not going to give it to my patients. It's funny, when the first flu came out, we ran out and bought flu vaccine, and we started vaccinating everybody, and then we never saw any flu, and I was like, well, that was stupid. It wasn't as holistic then. Not going to vaccinate our dogs for it. And what I tell, it's funny because the holistic vets in Florida were having a big internet discussion about this, and a couple of the really, really holistic vets are vaccinated. It scares me a little bit, but they're in the thick of it in Florida, and I think that one of them had a couple of patients that did die that had been at that dog show, and I think that was enough for them to say, ooh, this is a bad bugger. Because you guys are in agility and you're going to shows and you're going around. What I said to my office manager, she shows a dog, and I said, I'd stay home. Unless you can find out where every dog that's going to be at that show has been. She was going up from Pennsylvania. I said, well, make sure there's no dogs coming from Georgia and Florida. She said, well, these people come from all over. I said, well, which is more important to you? That point in that ribbon or your dog?
Dr. Morgan, question for you along those same lines. My vet wouldn't give it to me. I wouldn't ask because to me, this is my business. My dogs are here every single day. So I wanted it. He's like, no, I'm not giving it to you.
So there's a vet who says it's not a big enough problem.
See, and mine would give it to me because there's a spread in my area. So he wanted to push all my dogs on it, and you struggle.
There's pockets. It's
you know,
going to be pockets. It's kind of like the
what do you
lepto by
do?
us. We had 6, and they were 6 like within a city block because they were all drinking the same rat pee. So you have to look at, and so that's what I tell people, when somebody says, oh, lepto is having a big outbreak here. Well, what's a big outbreak? Is yours the only dog that got sick?
No, we were up the road at the emergency vet, and they said they were seeing a couple come in a week, starting this spring. So I don't know if that's an outbreak, but.
That is. I'd consider that an outbreak.
Our vet told us the same thing.
I've seen 2 in 30 years, so.
See, that's why.
2 leptos in 30 years.
In Plano, there
Oh,
was
wait, I take that back, 3.
Plano,
That's
2
what my
labs, 8
breeder
rats.
said. They're going, no.
Yes.
Right. The drug don't listen to what's on TV, don't listen to the drug companies. You need to go to your veterinarian and say, how many have you diagnosed? How many have come in this door? And then, oh, by the way, if they say they're treating them in their practice, run. Because it's there. So when the flu thing came out again, a couple years ago when Chicago had the big thing, and they were making a big deal about it because there was an emergency clinic in northern New Jersey. They had to close down because they took in dogs that were sick, treated them in the hospital. Everybody, it's very contagious. It's aerosol, so it's very contagious. And they had to close down and disinfect and blah, blah, blah. So they were closed for 3 weeks. So we have this little emergency kit that actually lives in the building behind our building. So if somebody calls and their dog is coughing and has a fever, and they've been somewhere that is suspicious, we get all that information on the phone first. We actually go out and treat them in the field, not even in our parking lot, we're in the field next door, capped, gowned, masked, all equipment that doesn't ever go in the building. And you don't want that in your building. We don't hospitalize either, so that makes it really nice. But I don't want it in my building. So if I think your dog might have any chance of having that, and that's the question you should ask your vet. How many of you diagnosed? Have they been in your building? How long ago?
But Dr. Morgan, like for us, for Melissa who has boarding me, so our dogs are with us all the time. Where's the risk that, like, what's?
It's tough. You don't know what's coming in your door.
Exactly.
Cause I interview vet clinics all around me, so I know what's there.
Right, and that's what you need to find out, like, you know, have the people that are coming here, have that, wherever they live, if they live
Their
close to
vets.
their vet, have them ask their vet, have you diagnosed it? Have you seen any? Is it here? Do I need to worry about this?
Well, even when I walk into my vet clinic, I asked, did you have parvo or distemper this morning? I won't walk in if they had it. And they're like, why do you ask me? And I'm like, cause I don't wanna walk in with it,
Yeah,
don't
no
bring my
kidding.
dog in with it.
Okay.
So either I'm at 8 o'clock or I ask that anytime I walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are ways to protect your
Yes.
pets, and
I carry mine in and
you,
they're
you've
like,
got, I have
"Why
clients,
not?"
they carry them in, they
Well, I
never put
don't
them on
want
the
them to
floor, they don't
walk
wanna put them on
across
the,
the
I'm like
floor.
doing everything in their arms, I'm like, that's
I
fine.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, we're extremely proactive about, you know, anything sick, man, that part of the clinic is like walled off.
Right.
Nothing goes in there. Like, you'll know if something's been sick, cause all you're gonna smell is bleach when you walk in the door. We
They
just-
look at you funny when you're carrying this 25-pound dog, I'm like, I don't really care.
Listen, there's only one person that can be your dog's best advocate, the best. That's the mom or the dad. You know, you're the ones who are gonna be the advocate. Nobody else is gonna do that as well as you. So, so that's my quick, we're overtime. So I need to know who came the furthest to get here?
I
San
came from
Antonio?
San Antonio. Anybody
than
further?
that? There you go.
Cool.
Oh, I
Yay.
forgot the wrong bottle, sorry, or box. All right, Lepto dog needs immune support.
Yes.
I will cluck like a chicken for that book.
All of us will.
Yeah. Clucking.
You better get up there then.
Who just said that? You?
Thank you.
Hey, what happens in Zimmer stays in Zimmer, you know that, right?
I will bring you a copy.
Which one do you like?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Suck up, number 2.
I got a story about those. You don't like
Want to
you.
go see him again? You want to make out with you?
Okay. All right, Hugh, give me some criteria here.
He's like,
I'm gonna go with the Aggie.
there you go.
Where's the
Oh,
other?
you Aggies.
Oh, we got two Aggies starting.
Where's the other egg?
The other one right there.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, you got, I have like 7 million handouts running around, but here's one on vaccines, so pass that one around. And then this one just happens to be